Happy Hump Day, everybody. Sean O'Connell Show coming at you from the Broadway studios on what is another glorious spring day in Salt Lake City. I know it's going to cool down a little bit next week. It's going to cool down a little bit even over the weekend. But today and tomorrow we are going to revel in the glory of this sunshine. Oh, mama. We got a fun show lined up for you today. We'll be lucky enough to have Josh Eilert, the acting Utah men's basketball head coach, here in studio with us. That's coming in half an hour. Isaac Shade's going to swing by, talk a little hoop as well. And in our third hour, Tom Callahan's going to join us right at the top, talk Utah Hockey Club. As they try to keep the slim playoff hopes alive, they're going to need a lot of help. St. Louis is going to have to cool off. Calgary's going to have to cool off. Vancouver's going to have to play poorly. You do have head-to-head matchups with two of those three teams still. But the Puck Lake City playoff push, as we keep mentioning, is getting less and less realistic for Utah Hockey Club. Still plenty to talk about with this team. We'll get there on the show today.
I think they're still pushing as hard, OC. I just think that they're pushing into a brick wall, right? Like they just can't push. They can't move the object.
They're pushing into an ice wall like Game of Thrones.
Ice wall, yes. They're pushing into a glacier ice wall. And they can't move it, unfortunately. The Blues are the ice wall right now.
It's kind of obnoxious, if we're being honest. St. Louis, if you're Clayton Keller, you're probably looking at that and just like, man, freaking Blues. He came
Bill
up
Armstrong, who was the GM on their title team a few years ago, he's like, really? After all I did for you, you can't just you can't just help us get in the playoffs our first year, really.
The thing with Bill Armstrong, I keep laughing and going all the way back to that introductory press conference. You know, Shabuzi's out on the foyer and playing his one-hit wonder song, and everyone's going crazy. Spicy Tuna gets the crowd riled up, and Bill Armstrong is like half playing rah-rah and half playing like, well, pump the brakes. Everyone's just like, Stanley Cup. He's like, hold on, guys. We're in a rebuild right now. It's going to take a minute. And the playoffs, we're going to try to make the playoffs, but I want there to be some patience. And that's fair, right? Because you want to set a realistic expectation.
He's like, I'm glad everyone's excited, but let's not get too let down if we don't win the Stanley Cup. So.
Yeah. You're currently 8 points out of the second wild card spot because the St. Louis Blues have now won 7 in a row. And Utah Hockey Club, of course, dropped any points opportunities against the Red Wings. You're back in action tomorrow at Tampa, and there's not a whole lot of hockey left to play to make up those 8 points. So you're really going to need for St. Louis to just stop winning at all. And
and no overtime losses, no single point games for getting the game to overtime. Like they need to outright lose in regulation.
Now, the greatest drama that Salt Lake City could possibly see is let's say Salt Lake, the Utah Hockey Club, gets red hot, and let's say St. Louis goes ice cold, like needs a fresh Zamboni cold. The final regular season matchup on April 15th is between St. Louis and Utah.
Tax day puck for everything.
Death, taxes, and Utah Hockey Club scoring 6 goals to take the final wild card spot in the playoffs.
Oh yeah. That'd be amazing if it got to that point. It's not looking like it will, though.
There's 11 games left. So in the 10 games between now and then.
So 22 points. 22 points available.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it can happen. You can see St. Louis was not going to do this 3 weeks ago. We were not talking about St. Louis being the problem.
It was Calgary. It was Vancouver.
So the fact that they've won 7 in a row, they've snagged themselves 7 wins in a row, 14 points in 7 games, means that Utah Hockey Club could do the same thing. Of course, you're still going to need a little bit of help, and you're going to need St. Louis to get cold. But if if they lose 7 in a row and Utah wins 7 in a row, all of a sudden everything is different. That's going to be tough. Tampa, Florida, Chicago, Calgary, LA, those are winnable games. Winnipeg at home on April 5th. But you've beat teams you weren't supposed to beat before.
Yeah.
You've also lost the teams you weren't supposed to lose to before. So we're going to remain optimistic. 11 games left, 22 points to be had. And right now you're 8 points out of the final wild card spot.
Good.
Ouch.
Maybe there's a miracle left in this season, though. We'll keep praying for one here in the Sean O'Connell Show.
So I wanted to get into Josh Furlong and the folks. Well, no one else. Just Josh Furlong did great work in getting the details of Alex Jensen's Utah contract. And it's available. I've tweeted it out. You can find it on KSL.com. The incentives are interesting. The numbers, the commitment, the time, the finance, all that stuff is a lot more of what we have been saying about this move for Utah men's basketball. This program, this athletic department, is taking a big old swing in trying to make sure that basketball gets back to where it once was. Now, Alex Jensen is going to have to recruit well. He's going to have to develop well. He's going to have to coach well. You're going to have to figure out ways in the NIL space to still get creative and still do things. But from we hired the right guy and we're trying to give that guy the right support financially, at least in the actual like coaching contract stuff that the university can directly control. You can't say that Taylor Randall and Mark Harlan and everybody involved at the university right now is not doing a heck of a job in trying to support a turnaround for Utah basketball. Now, within the context of being realistic, because I'm sure there are people out there who are just like, well, look, you got to pay. If you want to win the Big 12 conference, you got to pay the top salary in the Big 12 conference. You're talking about the top the top salary in all of college basketball. And if you want to continue to field a competitive football team, you're not going to be able to do exactly that. Alex Jensen's contract, remember, this is a guy who has not been a head coach at the collegiate level. His first head coaching contract at his alma mater makes him the 8th highest paid coach in the Big 12 conference. He's in the neighborhood of the top. The gap between the top 4 and the top 8, like he's not far behind number 4. He's not far behind number 5, okay? The incentives in his contract can increase this from being a $3.6 million annual salary to a $4.35 million annual salary. The realistic benchmarks, because the article gives you a picture of exactly how you really hit everything, you're looking at him making like $3.7 million in these first couple of years, because you're not going to hit all these performance bonuses right away. But that is a significant bump over what Craig Smith was making as the head coach of University of Utah men's basketball. This is a 6-year contract. So what you've seen here is commitment to Alex, commitment from the university to Alex. You've seen, I think, a negotiation that resulted in these numbers because Alex Jensen had a significant amount of leverage. He and his agent knew that Utah wanted him badly. I think from the very, very get-go, he wanted to be here. But like we have said for weeks, if you want to prove to this guy, hey, we know you want to be here and we want you here, but you being here is not just going to be some feel-good press conference moment. We want you to win basketball games, and we want to support you in winning these basketball games. You have to first give a big salary like this. Then you have to hire the kind of guys that he needs. Raphael Chilius is already on the staff. We still haven't gotten an official report, not that I've seen yet anyway, James, from the athletic department
Yeah, haven't seen anything.
On the GM reporting that we did yesterday.
Yeah, haven't seen anything. Just Pete Thamel reporting that they will hire Wes Wilcox as GM, which I think Alex Jensen and Mark Harlan's first two hires on his staff and for the Run and Utes program, home runs.
Standard university benefits for your head coach, a car.
Okay.
I think
got the U logo on the car too, right? It's got the
that would be
the
so
skin
cool.
all over it.
That'd be so cool if the coaches had to drive around with like wraps on their car.
the wrap, yeah.
It'd be amazing also if that car was wrapped.
This is Alex Jensen's car.
Yeah, it was just like his picture on the side of the car.
Well, no, the T-shirts that we got at the press conference,
yes.
just that with the Utah logo and a shadow of him with his bearded face.
Can you imagine how amazing it would be if like Kyle Whittingham had to drive around in a car with the Kyle Whittingham's face on the driver's side door?
They should do that. No, they shouldn't. That would be a nightmare
Honestly,
for them whenever they go out in public.
He already likes to ride his bike. He would never drive the car.
That's true.
He would avoid that clause in the contract by just never ever driving the car.
Well, you have to wrap your bike then.
That's fine. You can't,
maybe just your helmet.
You can't.
I don't wear a helmet anyway.
You can't make it gaudy, right? That would be hilarious if Kyle Whittingham and Alex Jensen had to drive cars with their faces on the side. But
sorry to derail your thought there. You were talking about 8th best contract in the Big 12, 8th highest paid coach in the Big 12, puts him right behind Jerome Tang, Kansas State, according to USA, a relatively recent USA Today article, and right ahead of Bobby Hurley and TJ Otzelberger. Bobby Hurley, of course, of ASU, Otzelberger of Iowa State. So he's and not that incentive-wise, now, of course, these guys probably have incentives that bump their contracts a little bit, but if we just assume that was all that these coaches are getting, incentive-wise gets them to about 4.3. That puts them in the neighborhood of Kelvin Sampson as the fourth highest coach in the Big
12. That's what the neighborhood is an important place to be, but Kelvin Sampson obviously should make more. He's coaching.
Yeah,
he's coaching the best team in the conference.
The fourth highest paid coach in a conference that he's dominated for the first couple of years here, and he dominated the American and made Final Four and Elite Eight runs as a head coach in the American Conference before they joined the Big 12. Yeah, that surprised me that he's not top 2.
Bill Self is the highest paid coach in college basketball, according to the USA Today sports data. $8.8 million per year. Calipari's making $8 million at Arkansas. Dan Hurley, who, remember, there were some strong overtures from the NBA to get Dan Hurley.
Yes,
out of
Hurleywood was the ESPN headline.
And we did a PFL show basically at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut shortly after that was extended. That community was really excited, buzzed, relieved that their guy was going to stick around because I can tell you there's nothing else going on. Like UConn sports, UConn basketball specifically is what they're pumped about.
Yeah, the only other pro team in Connecticut is the WNBA team,
the Connecticut Sun. Yeah. That's we did it at their arena, and
right.
They actually draw pretty well. They have good attendance, but it's WNBA attendance.
Yeah,
right?
UConn men's and women's basketball draws a ton there too because of what Gino's built the UConn women into. That's their pro sports out there.
Do you know without looking at the list, okay? Maintain eye contact with me. Don't look at the list. Who is the highest paid coach in the Big 12 conference? What school do you think is, besides Kansas, excuse me?
Yeah, okay, besides Kansas.
The second highest paid is who?
Is it Arizona?
You would think. that Arizona and Tommy Lloyd's $5.2 million salary per year would be good enough for second place. It's actually Scott Drew at Baylor.
Oh, of course, yeah. Of course it's Scott Drew. He just won a national championship. Of course he's probably number 2.
Kelvin Sampson, like you said, 4.6-ish. And then
Tommy Lloyd's done an outstanding job, But Houston needs to give Kelvin Sampson a raise. There's no way he should be. I mean, okay, you can say we're not going to put you higher than Scott Drew. That's another national championship coach there. But like, if I'm Kelvin Sampson, I'm like, okay, I'm better than Tommy Lloyd. All due respect.
Man, I love these random. USA Today does a great job of compiling all the data they can, these public records requests on these contracts and things like that. Obviously, you should factor into these discussions. You should factor in Kevin Young, BYU. His contract is more of like the agent reports it, and this is not something that's as easy to find out at a private university, but we know that Kevin Young is making a lot of money. He's among the top 10 coaches in all of college basketball. When you get north of that $5 million per year range, you're up there with Nate Oates and Tommy Lloyd and Scott Drew and Bruce Pearl, and those are the numbers reported for Kevin Young. So Alex Jensen is coming in his first collegiate job in the middle of the pack, Big 12 salary-wise. Now, he's also being given a bit of a leash here on the Dallas Mavericks job, like finishing this out. It's part of his contract, according to the reporting, that until he's done with the Mavericks, he has to put in at least 10 hours a week for Utah basketball. I don't know how that's enforced. I don't know how that's tracked.
It's a part-time job with Utah basketball until he's done with the Mavs.
I need to know if they've got like a Workday account set up for him, a Dayforce account where he's clocking in.
Yes.
And Mark Harlan's calling him just like, hey, did you really work from 11 p.m. to 12:01 a.m.? Did you really put in an hour? Or were you just clocking in and kind of milking that one?
Did you really put all 10 of your hours this week on Tuesday? Did you really do that?
Alex, we want to make sure everything's copacetic.
Accountability is important at the University of Utah, as you know.
It says here that you clocked in at 11 p.m. and then you clocked out at 7 a.m. Are you trying to get me to believe that you worked through the night for Utah basketball?
In the middle of your Dallas Mavericks season? Really?
While your team was flying from I would love it if Alex Jensen was just like somehow like, oh, crap, I got to clock in. I got to put in 10 hours. Oh, damn it. I've only had 6 hours this week. That would be the funniest thing.
Sorry, missed punch. I forgot to clock out. I need to. What's the email I send the missed punch to?
I desperately.
Mark's just like, just send it to Lisa.
I need an all access kind of thing going on with a camera following around Alex Jensen. And he's just like, does he have to remove the Dallas Mavericks hat and physically put on a Runnin' Utes hat when he's putting in those 10 hours? I'm obviously being facetious here.
Take the blue sweater, take the blue sports coat off and put on the red sports coat. Yeah.
He's got a lot of juggling to do right now as he's trying to do it the right way, which is something that you have to applaud. It's not necessarily the typical way of doing things. And we've been lucky enough for the most part in the state of Utah when guys take another job or when guys move on to another job. We've actually been pretty fortunate in Utah to have the coaches do their best to try to do it the right way. I mean, I remember when Gary Anderson was taking the Wisconsin job after a lot of success at Utah State, and those, he called everybody on the team, and he had a conversation or a personal correspondence. If he didn't get a hold of them, there was a text message or whatever. Which there's a lot of coaches that they just like leave. I mean, there's all these horror stories from athletes. Just like I found out on Twitter that my coach was leaving, and I never heard from him again, right? Urban Meyer, as complicated as his personality has become, and his legacy has become over the years, when Urban Meyer left to go to Florida, he finished out the season. Urban said, no, I'm going to do this the right way. And that's sort of been the stance of a lot of the guys that have moved on, and now guys that's moving on from an old job and coming to a new one. In Alex Jensen, who's set to take over as head coach for Utah men's basketball. So great work from Josh Furlong pulling all the data in. I put some poll questions up at Real OC Sports about the incentives in the contract, the bonuses. Here, there's a couple different there's several different $25,000 marks that you can hit in performance bonuses. And this is kind of how it works in a lot of these contracts. Which one are you going to bet the house on him hitting? Again, 6 years to do it. The hope is that he'll hit all of them, but maybe the first one. Which one do you think he hits first? Top 4 regular season finish in the Big 12, Big 12 Coach of the Year, an NCAA tournament appearance, an NCAA tournament win, and the caveat on that one is it can't be a first 4 win.
Okay, so round of 64.
Has to be a round of 64
later.
or better.
Okay.
$25,000 bonus associated with all of those milestones that you can hit. There's also an academic progress report bonus that I'm leaving that out because none of us actually understand or care what
and
APR is.
We won't know. We'll just he got that, great.
So top 4 finish, James. You're betting the mortgage here. Top 4 finish in the Big 12.
This is at any time during his contract or in the first year?
No, well, which one does he hit first? Top 4 finish, Big 12 Coach of the Year, NCAA tournament appearance. I guess you have to say, if we're going first, the tourney win could come in the same year, but
yeah, I'll say top 4 finish in the Big 12.
Okay, all right,
and I'll say it's next year. OC.
Oh, let's go!
I need a guarantee button like Charles Barkley has. Guarantee. It may be I may be just as good at predicting things as Charles Barkley is, but yeah, top 4 finish next year. How about that?
Let me ask you this one, James. This one I think is probably a more intriguing question and comes with more intriguing numbers. There's a $100,000 bonus for these accomplishments.
Oh, okay.
Escalators in the contract. If Alex Jensen can make a Final Four appearance or be a Big 12 regular season champion. Now, there's a lot, like you could make a Final Four by getting hot over a couple of weeks. You got to be really dang good to win the Big 12 regular season championship for months. Now, you got to be a good team in both scenarios because it's prohibitively rare for a team that's mediocre to suddenly catch fire and make a run. Yeah, Sweet 16 maybe. Elite 8 if you're lucky. There are very few fluke teams that make it to the Final Four.
That's 2 more wins against really good teams than the Sweet 16. Yeah.
So $100,000. Which one of those is more likely? Big 12 regular season championship, which means you got to be better over the course of a season than Kansas, Iowa State, Houston, BYU.
Yeah, before this year, the best men's basketball conference in the country.
Baylor,
SEC took that title over this year. Probably Final Four run, just because of how deep the Big 12 is historically.
Right now, the Big 12 regular season champion, that's winning, and I'm with you. I'm just like, I think it's actually because it's
20 conference games.
It requires a more sustained level of greatness.
Yeah.
And while we all hope that is the ceiling, and we all hope that is where Utah basketball gets to eventually under Alex Jensen, from where you're at right now, both would be lofty accomplishments, which is exactly why they both come with a $100,000 bonus. But still, it's a fun little thought to have. Beautiful day in Salt Lake City, but that does not mean that the rain's not coming. It doesn't mean that we might have another unseasonably late snowstorm coming. And when that moisture hits your roof, you want to make sure that your roof is in great shape. You probably don't know how to do that. I certainly don't know how to do that. But you know who does? Top Local Roofing and my friend Justin Cunningham. Certified by the Better Business Bureau. He will work anywhere up and down the Wasatch Front. 801-839-4501. Give him a call. Tell him to come inspect the roof. Make sure that where the shingles meet the chimney and where the awnings are at and where the gutters are, that everything is still good after the crazy winter we already had. You do not want that water, that moisture, that wind compromising what happens inside your house. The roof is the front line of defense against all of that stuff. Top Local Roofing, help you out, hook you up. 801-839-4501. Give him a call. All right. Josh Eilert, acting head coach for Utah men's basketball, is going to join us next in studio. College basketball crown coming next week. Little tournament action, brand new thing. I'm very excited for it because I get to call their first game of the college basketball crown against Butler. I'm going to get out my notes because Coach is going to help me make my game notes. That's next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Baseline left on the inbound. Into Keller it comes. Back to Little. Now Madsen. Catch and shoot three for Gabe. Missed it. Rebound. Hunter Erickson. Oh, he soars in and dunks it down. What a play by Erickson.
That highlight, a Hunter Erickson putback dunk, came from the regular season finale for Utah men's basketball against BYU. Sound courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, on the call. Talk a little Utah basketball here with me in studio today. Josh Eilert, acting head coach for Utah men's basketball, kind enough to give us some time here. Coach, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I don't know if those headphones are even going to work for you. You can put them on.
I have them.
I'll be loud enough for you at least. Thanks for coming down. We were kind of talking during the break a little bit. You had a smile on your face about everyone's been thrown into a different role, so to speak, in these last couple of weeks here. And not just you, other members of the staff, obviously. It's a little bit of a different situation for the players. How has it been?
Best way to describe it is probably awkward in a lot of
Sure.
sense, and we laughed about it, me and my wife, like the last couple of years have been awkward for us in terms of, last year in June I got thrown into taking over a program at West Virginia that I'd been there for 17 years and thrown into that interim role and with a 10-month contract. But so this year is a little bit different, traveled across the country to uproot my family and move across here and join the Utah men's basketball program. And this is certainly not the way I envisioned it happening, and so it is what it is. It's part of the business, but here we are, at the end of the season and trying to manage a situation that, a lot of people didn't, ask for this, especially from the interior part of the program, the roster, the players, the staff members. So just trying to do right by everybody as we finish up this season.
And there is work left to be done. College basketball crown. We're going to have the games right here on ESPN 700. I'm fortunate enough I get to step in for Bill Riley, call your first game against Butler. Can't wait to be doing that. But I got to ask, I mean, when the notice came across, you guys were all going to be invited. What was the level of enthusiasm? What was the conversation like in the building with the players? Because, it wasn't the season anyone envisioned, and the way things have ended here, although they haven't quite ended, is not the way that people would have scripted it. You could have said, you know what, it's a brand new tournament, let's not. But that wasn't the decision. So what was that like? What was that conversation like?
It's a new day and age in college athletics. So, even with this tournament, it's kind of new and fresh, and it's a brand new tournament. So there's money involved on the back end of it. If you can win a couple games, there's some money involved, some incentive for some of these players to continue playing. But the invite came across the desk, and prior to us even going to the Big 12 tournament, and that wasn't our intention to really bring that up. But it's also if the situation arises where we can't string some wins together and make a run in the Big 12 tournament, there's still life for us. There's still more basketball, and I think more than anything, these guys that really love the game, you take a couple of days off and everybody else is playing, you want to get back in the gym. You want to get back and compete. That's in your blood. And I think, after those few days off, they really turn that on and realize that, this is what I do. I'm a basketball player. So they kind of reset their minds, their bodies there for a week. And we've had some really good practices here as of late as we're built up to that Monday in Vegas.
I know that as a coach in this business, right, it's all about winning, and you're incredibly competitive. Everyone at this level of sports is. And moral victories aren't supposed to be a thing, but, we get a lot of fan feedback. We have a lot of guests come on. And one thing that has really jumped out about this team, even despite less than ideal results, it looks like a team that enjoys playing together. It looks like a group of guys that still fights and claws and works hard, even if there's a 12-point deficit or a 15-point deficit or even in a blowout game or something. And, I know that you don't get bonus points for that in modern college sports. But to me, it still means something because it's not as common, I don't think, as it used to be. Where does that come from with this team, do you think?
I think it's their chemistry. These guys really like each other. They really enjoy being around each other. And I've been, in college athletics for almost 2 decades. And I can point to, quickly jog my memory about some of these teams I've been a part of that you can't wait for it to end. And in no way did I feel that way. Every single day I walk out on the court, I'm excited to be around these guys. These are a really good group of guys, and that's a credit to Coach Smith and the type of guys he brought into this program. And certainly it's not where we wanted to be. In this day and age, we want to be playing in the NCAA tournament. That's everybody's goal. But it didn't work out that way, and we kind of struggled there through the Big 12 and with that transition. So here we are, an opportunity to continue to play, and these guys have taken that opportunity, and we're running with it.
Josh Eilert, my coach here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah men's basketball will be participating early next week and hopefully late into next week and beyond in the College Basketball Crown new postseason tournament in Vegas. It does come with cash prizes. It obviously helps out the NIL stuff and the modern era of college basketball. As you already mentioned, a lot of these decisions are made because of finances, because of money. But, it's also the time of year where players have to start deciding whether or not they're going to pursue professional opportunities if it's that time in their life, whether they're going to be fielding phone calls and eyeing the transfer portal. There's a couple of names already in the transfer portal. And yet guys like Jake Wallin said, I'm putting my name in the transfer portal. I'm going to test those waters, but I'm committed to finishing out whatever this season looks like with my team. That is so backwards from the way things used to be, but it's college athletics right now. So what are those conversations like with you and with those guys? You're getting them to practice now, prepare for a game against Butler, while I assume they're also planning their short and long-term futures.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it was 10 years ago, like we talked about. I mean, you either adapt or perish. And here we are at University of Utah going through a coaching transition and playing in a tournament that's basically 3 weeks after they finish the Big 12 tournament. So there's a lot of things that can all happen at the same time. Through the coaching transition, you can't lose trust with these guys. So they got to feel like they have the opportunity to go out and look what's out for their best interest. And I'm okay with that. I think everybody in the institution realizes that that's okay. They're still representing the University of Utah. They're going to compete. They're still getting paid through their NIL, and they still have an opportunity to see what's out there for them. Just like a coach can always see what's in their best interest, the players should be able to do so as well.
And they are, and that's good to know. While you're conducting these practices, we haven't actually gotten official word from is everyone playing in the College Basketball Crown? Do you expect full participation?
We got a couple guys that are going to be out. I mean, Caleb Lohner, he's pursuing his NFL potential, so that certainly makes sense for him.
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody's going to look down on his decision to kind of go all in on that. And we had Mason Matson had cleaned up. He had this injury that he's been working through the course of the year, so he had a surgery to get that cleaned up. And so we're down a couple of guys, but right now, as of it looks today and moving forward, we're going to be pretty much full strength.
I saw Caleb out grabbing some breakfast the other day, yesterday actually, I think, and we were talking about this on the show. He went down and participated in the Big 12 Pro Day on the football side of things. A couple weeks ago, everyone else who was there was doing sport-specific training for those tests, was working on their bench presses, working on their vertical, working on all that stuff. How much of that was Caleb able to do while also a member of the Utah men's basketball team?
I think, he didn't miss a beat in terms of his conditioning and his training. Our weight coach, Logan Ogden, does an amazing job, and he catered his specific program to what he needed to be doing for football. Because really, at the end of the day, that's in his best interest to be working towards his goals in football. But that didn't deter him from doing anything that we needed to do on the basketball court either. And certainly, we probably saw that we'd probably utilize him more than we did. But getting him late in the season and trying to get him acclimated to what we got going on and transition was probably a little more difficult than we probably thought it was going to be.
You've been around basketball a long time. Have you ever coached anyone who's in that same kind of a situation, a big man who might have an NFL shot?
Well, there's one that transferred out of West Virginia that went to Mississippi State by the name of Jimmy Bell. Okay. He's still pursuing those opportunities on the defensive line side of things. So he came in at, I believe, at 340 pounds when we got him from a junior college in Missouri, and he came into us, and we ended up playing him at right about 280. But from day one, we realized he looks way more like a football player than he does a basketball player. But he could clear some space in the lane, and some of those guards should have been buying him dinner more so than they did for all the space he cleared, getting them to the rim.
That's awesome. Josh Eilert for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utah basketball. So you're the head coach right now. You've got a tournament to prepare for. What's the scout on your first opponent, Butler? What are you seeing from them?
Well, they're a good team. Their record really doesn't show that. They won 14 games this year, but they got a top 50 offense. They put a lot of guys on the floor that can shoot it. If you compare them somewhat to like what we saw night in and night out against Big 12 competition, they don't have as many blow by guys. They don't have the guys that are going to beat you off the bounce as much as some of the Big 12 foes that we prepared for night in and night out. But they do got some really good size. Good size throughout their roster. Their 3 and 4 can really on mismatches take advantage of you. So their offense is right there with the top teams in the country, and it's going to be a challenge for us to sit down and guard as a team.
Okay, so I guess rewinding a little bit, you get tabbed as the interim guy after Craig is separated from his duties, and immediately some of the questions we're asking on a show like this is it going to look the same as this team finishes out? Are the lineups going to look the same? Is it something you deliberately try to switch up to inject some energy in? Seemed like KD, like Keanu Dawes, maybe had a slightly larger role, and maybe that's something you recognize in him. When you're sort of strategically going about that, is there a deliberate thought of like, well, I got to do it a little bit different? Or, I mean, just tell me how that process works.
Well, first of all, you don't want to make wholesale changes. If you go back to when it happened, and Craig was released on a Monday, we were supposed to come in and start preparing for Arizona, right? And that wasn't my scout by any means, but that entire day was a wash. And the following day, Tuesday, we were leaving for Tempe to play at Arizona. So to think you have a lot of time to make these decisions and make wholesale changes, you don't.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to, really, take the keys to the car and drive it at that point. And the more time that's elapsed, especially through this transition from Big 12 play to now, I've been able to put a little more stamp on the program in terms of what my philosophy is. But leading up, finishing up those last, regular season games and leading up to the Kansas City and the Big 12 tournament, there wasn't a lot I could do to change, what we did from a structural standpoint, from an operational standpoint. So back to your question, like in terms of rotations and whatnot, I put a huge emphasis on a few things, and one of which was taking care of the ball. And two, and who's going to get us extra possessions and to try to help us win that possession battle in terms of who's going to go get us some extra offensive rebounds. And KD, like you said, you mentioned his name. He's one of those guys that can get you extra possessions, and I value that, and I value the way he plays. So I told them guys up front, like, this is what I value in terms of playing time, and the things that I really value, I'm gonna reward that, and it's going to be very transparent in terms of who plays. Going into games, in a lot of ways, I didn't know who's going to give me that competitive spirit, who's going to go get me an extra rebound, who's going to take care of the ball. So I just reward the guys that gave me that effort.
The relationship players have with an assistant coach versus a head coach is sometimes pretty different. And when an assistant coach gets elevated to head coach, a lot of times that's something that happens over the course of an offseason, and that whole process can be felt out a little bit. It usually doesn't happen from like a Sunday to a Monday.
Right.
How much did your relationship with players change when you went from being assistant, maybe like the big brother role, the uncle role, more to like now you're dad. Now you got to be the head coach for however long.
Yeah, I didn't. It's not going to work unless I be myself. As an assistant coach and as a head coach, I'm still the same person. So, yeah, I had to take on different roles, and in their eyes, I'm a different role, but I'm still the same person. I got to be who I am. I'm not Coach Smith. I'm not Coach Huggins. I'm Coach Eilert. So I'm going to do things the way I want to do things. Now, the situation really didn't give me that opportunity to build from day one.
Sure.
But it is what it is. But I had really good relationships with everybody from top to bottom in the program. The one thing I did tell them, and I got here late in the summer, so I had very little to do with any of them being here. You know, nobody chose to play for Coach Eilert. They chose to play for Coach Smith. So, and I was very upfront and honest with them in terms of approaching them and how we move forward. But and nobody chose the situation we were in late in that year. But I'm going to do the best I can, and that was the message for him. I'm going to do the best I can to be the best leader for you, and look out for the best interest of this team, for this university. And each and every one of them, I've been very forthright with them in terms of what I expect from them. And I think they've really done a good job of taking on that role that I've asked them to take on.
Josh Eilert is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're going to keep him for as long as we can, for a few more minutes. Coach, I hope you don't mind if we milk some of your time here.
I just got lunch, but that's all I got on the schedule right now.
You shouldn't have told me that. Now I'm going to keep you here for like another hour. One of the unique dynamics that was pointed out, I think, when after Coach Smith was separated from his duties, you know, he's got sons involved in the program and stuck around. Those guys finish out the job. That's an admirable thing. I think it says a lot about the team dynamic. I think it says a lot about Coach Smith. I think it says a lot about those individuals. Speak to that, if you don't mind.
No, it's just a character of those two kids and the way they were raised, you know, and it is very admirable. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt deep down in terms of, you know, what they're feeling, what they're thinking every day, and I think we're all mindful of that. But the fact that they continue to come in and do their job and be a part of the program, that speaks volumes to their character. You know, Landon, from day one's kind of been our operations guy and continues to work through every detail, just like he did for his dad. You know, he's doing the same thing for me, and you know, he's diligent in every detail as we move forward into the Crown tournament, and he's right on top of things, and we haven't missed a beat there. And then speaking of Brady, like every single day he comes in with the same attitude as he did before, and nothing's changed. Does it hurt deep down in terms of you know, what they got hit with? I'm sure it does, but they've handled it the right way with character and class, and like I told both of them, you know, and even our team in general, all this adversity, you're going to be defined by it in a lot of ways. And the way you handle things and the composure and the class you handle these things, it's going to speak volumes for the next guy that's looking at your value. And everybody's looking at our value from top to bottom in terms of our program, from me as an interim head coach to Carter as the video coordinator to Brady as a walk-on. Everybody's looking at their value right now and assessing their value based on how they handle these things. And so yeah, I think everybody's done from the top to bottom this program been really good and professional and done everything with class as we transition through this period.
When you came in, the transition was already happening from a Pac-12 program, a Pac-12 team, to a Big 12 team. And throughout the year, we've had a chance to talk with coaches and players about how different that is. Now, you had a lot more experience in that world than basically everyone in the building. What were you able to, I guess, tell the players, or what were you able to bring to prepare players for the difference in basketball style, the longer travel, whatever it was, being a Big 12 team instead of a Pac-12 team?
I think the first and foremost is the physicality and athleticism, you know, and I saw it from day one, like looking at our roster. Do we have the physicality? Do we have the strength, the size, the athleticism, the speed to compete with some of these teams in the Big 12? Now, we were different than a lot of them in terms of the way we shared the ball, and Rick could shoot it from all angles of the floor. But, yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be a struggle from day one based on what I saw when I got here in mid-June. But I thought maybe we had a niche to where we could really, you know, make some noise. Now, it's a bear to try to transition to this league, and I've used this as an example with our guys. I've used it with our coaching staff. I mean, we went to 4 straight, you know, NCAA tournaments, one of which being a Final Four and 2 of which being a Sweet 16 prior to going into the Big 12. That's when we were in the Big East. And one of our worst years was transitioning into the Big 12, and we were 13-19 that year, and we won 6 conference games. So it's not easy to transition into this league. And if you look at the league, the teams from the Pac-12 that did so, we fared better in Arizona State. We fared better in Colorado. Now, Arizona, with their tradition and their resources, and you know, they were kind of built for that transition, so they did a really good job transitioning into the league. But I thought we did a pretty good job, and I told our guys, like, from what I saw outside looking in and then being a part of the program through this course. I'm pretty proud of what they did. We finished with 8 wins in the conference play. Probably left 2 or 3 on the table, but you win a couple more and you win one of those non-conference games that we probably should have won. You're right there to make the NCAA tournament.
We talked about that a lot, how even if the expectation is for every player wants to win every game, every coach wants to win every game. We know how that's not truly realistic. We know these guys are incredibly competitive. The preseason prediction came out, and Utah was supposed to be the worst team in the league, and that clearly was not the case at any point this year. You guys overperformed that from the very beginning. Is that something that the players get to take a little bit of pride in, even though the season didn't go the way that anyone wanted it to?
I don't know if that's one of those consolation prizes that nobody really looks at as a prize, but we do. I looked at it. I think I had this thought, and I looked at the other teams and where they were predicted to finish. Between us, West Virginia, and Texas Tech, I think we all finished 5 spots higher than we were supposed to finish, and so we exceeded expectations more so than any other team in the Big 12. It helps that we were picked to finish last, but regardless, we made a splash based on expectations. Now, I mean, you go back to some of the non-conference games and talking about the Big 12 transition and the resources. We were flying commercial to a lot of our non-conference games, or both of them. When we went out to Memphis to play Mississippi State, I remember getting delayed in Minneapolis trying to get out to South Dakota to play Iowa. So we were traveling in 2 days early and flying commercial, and so that's something you don't see in Big 12 programs. So that's something growth-wise for our program and for the University of Utah. We got to throw some more resources into the program and compete and operate like a Big 12 program.
Josh Eiler for just another couple minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. College basketball crown for Utah men's basketball coming next week. Brand new postseason tournament happening in Las Vegas. To be part of something brand new like that, it's the inaugural college basketball crown tournament. I guess it's hard to know what to expect. What do you expect?
I don't know. It's new. It's exciting for me. I'm going to take any opportunity and experience I can get to be a head coach at this point. And selfishly for me, I want to go in there full strength, and I want to be able to compete at the highest level, and that helps me. But that also helps every single person in our roster because, we don't know. We all could be going separate directions. There might be a few guys left over at the University of Utah, but right now, just like I tell the players, I tell the same thing to our staff. Somebody's watching. Somebody's assessing your value. And what we do with this opportunity might define your next role and where you end up. So selfishly, I think, for me, I want to go in there and compete at the highest level. Now, what to expect, I don't know. And I think when I first saw the opportunity come across my desk and we started talking about it, I think the one thing that came to mind, especially with the timing of the portal opening, was who is going to go in there full strength and who is going to be able to lock in. And a lot of these tournaments, it's like the motivational factor. Who wants to be there? Yeah. You look at the NIT over the years, sometimes you don't really get that motivation until you win a couple of games. And it's like, okay, we won a couple of games, now let's go win it. We're here already, let's go win it. And in the past, the NIT, the big reward at the end was to go to New York City, and now it's Indianapolis, and I don't know if that's as glamorous as New York City. And so here, I mean, it's a pretty good event to spend time with your brothers. If you love the game of basketball and you want to compete some more, compete with your brothers, you go to Vegas and compete, and it's within a 1 week time frame, and you're not doing all that traveling, and at the end of the day, I mean, if you win a couple games, you're in the money, and that's way different than any other tournament that we've had in the past.
So it's a business trip. When you're a student athlete, when you're a coach, it's a business trip. Fans are going to take an opportunity. They're going to go and do the Vegas thing and be at the pool all day. What balance will you find in allowing these guys to have fun with it while also being there for the right reasons?
If they show up to the meetings, they show up to practice with the right attitude, I'm not too worried about it. I've been around a lot of different teams, and this team more so than any I've have a lot of trust with in terms of how they operate and how they handle themselves. So I'm not too worried about that. But I do want them to enjoy it. I want them to make memories and have fun, and that's part of the whole experience. You know, if they're enjoying it and having fun with where they're at, then they're more likely to give me more on the basketball floor.
Gabe Madsen departs Utah basketball as the all-time three-point shots leader in program history. What's his future in the game of basketball?
As far as he wants to take it, really,
Yeah.
Gabe understands, some of his deficiencies and what he's got to improve on moving forward. But you see the guys that really make it are the guys that have that professional attitude, that professional, they treat it like a business. They walk in early in the morning, they take care of their bodies, they get their shots up, and they do everything the right way. He's one of those guys that are going to do things the right way from day one. And I was just having a conversation last week about one of our former players that, we were like one of his only scholarship offer. We took him sight unseen at West Virginia. A guy by the name of Miles McBride, Deuce McBride. He's with the Knicks, and I would have never thought, before we got him into the program, that he'd be a professional. But every day I watched him operate, and the way he handled himself every single day, and had that growth mindset of continuing to get better. And he's never peaked. That's kind of the way Gabe is. He operates like that. He is a professional in the way he handles himself. So to look at him and say, okay, that's his ceiling. There's no way that's his ceiling. If he continues to work and get better and treat it like a business, which it is for a lot of these guys for another decade or more, if Gabe really has the right mindset, he could really continue to elevate himself and elevate himself as a professional.
We talked about how professional college sports are now, and yes, we want all these guys to go on and NBA, overseas, G League, whatever. You've been around the game a long time, as I keep saying. Is it different coaching guys now that they get paid?
You know what? When these conversations started 3-4 years ago, and we started talking about the NIL and how it was going to be, I honestly thought it'd be a lot worse than what it is. They're still the same 18 to 23-year-olds that they were before. I think what really has happened, I think there are a lot of people from the outside, or hopefully, what my experience was, there's a lot of people who have stepped in to really help him with the money aspect of things. So yes and no. I mean, it's certainly changed things, but not nearly as much as I thought it would. Now, the biggest thing that you can see in some of these locker rooms is when somebody gets paid too much and their value is way overstated, and it kind of upsets the locker room a little bit. So you really got to be careful as a coach not to have those scenarios pop up to where somebody's sitting on the bench making way more than the guys who are producing.
Yeah, I mean, I go back. I was a crappy walk-on football player, and I remember being mad that guys on scholarship were bad, were terrible, and they got the team meals, which was not legal for walk-ons back then. And I remember the resentment when you'd look at some guy just be like, he sucks. Why does that guy get the scholarship? And I'm out here grinding, working at a bar till 3 a.m. I can't imagine what it's like.
No, it's the same exact concept, but just at a different level. I was a walk-on as well at Kansas State. I played 2 years at JUCO as a scholarship player, but 2 years at Kansas State. And some of those same scenarios, come to mind as well. So, and back then you're playing for the love of the game, especially as a walk-on. You're hoping to get a free meal here and there when you went on a road trip, and you're pretty excited about that. So, college has really changed. It is a way more professional game than it is a collegiate game, and the more we realize that, and like I said, we got all these institutions. You adapt or perish, and so if you don't change with the times, you will perish.
Do you love basketball the same way you did when it was that when you were that Kansas State walk-on?
Well, I'm 44, and if I could play this afternoon, and I would play. I'd go out there and hoop and enjoy it just like I did as a kid. Now, I worry that next time I go out there, I might pop an Achilles, and I'll be
you won't, Coach. Come on.
I'm out there in Vegas coaching on it with a scooter, and if you do see that on Monday, that's what happened. But regardless, I love the game. That's why I continue to do what I do. I'd be lying if from time to time I don't go home and look at my wife and what am I doing? There's got to be an easier way to make a living.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, then you go back on the court and you spend time with these guys and you mentor these guys, and it's so much more than just the X's and O's, and it's the people. It's the people. It's the relationships, and that's why I tell a lot of these young staff members, it's like it's a long-term game in everything you do. Just treat people the right way and do right by people, and it's going to benefit you in this business.
I want you to know I asked this from the most respectful and mindful place possible. You're coaching for your job, your future, whatever. Like you're saying in this college basketball crown tournament, somebody's watching. In an ideal world, what does the short-term future, long-term future look like for Josh Eilert?
That's a good question. Last year at this time when I was kind of out of a job, I had a lot more anxiety about it, and I had a 10-month contract there at West Virginia, but it just came to a screeching halt. And this year, I don't really have that anxiety. I feel a lot more comfortable in my own skin and been through it. And so a lot of times, you talk to college coaches, they're either coming or going. And I was at a place for 17 years at West Virginia. So I had that more anxiety last year during that transition. Now, would I like to get a head coaching job? Absolutely. And if I could get involved in a mid-major or a program that fit me and my family and my personality, and I would be all in. And I'd love to start a program from scratch. I've been two opportunities to be a head coach, and both of them in interim situations. There were two totally different situations, but you talk to anybody that's spent time in an interim role, it's the hardest year of your life, and it's a really difficult situation to manage, and it's way different than just building a program with a 3, 4, 5 year contract. So I look forward to that opportunity. I look forward to hiring my own staff, bringing my own roster in, creating a culture, and developing a program and putting a stamp on it from day one that is my stamp and my way of doing things.
Have you had any conversations with Alex Jensen?
Yeah, we've worked with. We typically talk every day, every other day. He's doing right by. In a lot of ways, we've connected very well in terms of how we approach things. So he's doing right by the job he's got right now with the people and the people in Dallas and the players in Dallas, and I think that's very admirable how he's trying to manage both situations. But I'm doing the same thing here. Just taking care of our guys, taking care of our staff, and doing things the way they should be done with class and integrity.
Well, Coach, very much looking forward to being down in Vegas, calling your game in the college basketball crown. I only get to call the first one, and then as you guys advance, Tyson Ewing's going to take over because I got to fly out and do some fights. But thanks for coming in today. I know that this is not the easiest situation for you or any of your players to be in. You guys have performed very, very admirably, and I appreciate you giving us some time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
That's Josh Eilert, interim head coach at University of Utah men's basketball. Utes are in action in the college basketball crown. You can hear it right here on ESPN 700, your home of the Utes, on Monday. All right, we're going to combine a couple of breaks. We went way too long with Coach. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Go check your $1 million bracket right now at ESPN 792.1 FM. Our bracket challenge brought to you by Motorsportsland, Jersey Mike's, Intermountain Sports Expo, Intermountain Bobcat, Ken Garff Nissan, and Salt Lake City. Our great sponsors have helped us out. Big thanks to the Utah Athletic Department, John Vu, everyone, for giving us Josh Eilert. He stuck around for half an hour plus talking about the state of things in Utah men's basketball. Here's the thing. College basketball crown is happening. There are guys in the transfer portal. They're going to play. The right move for Utah men's basketball right now is to let these guys be part of whatever this postseason ends up being while they test the waters. You don't have to make the decision on where you're heading in this transfer portal window. The transfer portal window is just the 30 days you have to put your name in the transfer portal to decide whether or not you're going to explore opportunities through the spring, even into the summer. I mean, during the break, we were talking about how you can end up making a decision in August if you're a basketball player. Now, football, they're going to want you in camp. But in any case, Utah men's basketball, it's a group of guys that like one another. Coach Eilert likes this team. They like Salt Lake City. I'm not going to tell Alex Jensen what to do. I'm not going to tell Alex Jensen how to make decisions on filling out his staff. We know that conversations have happened with Andre Miller, but as I heard Spence talking about on his show yesterday, we've talked about it on this show, it doesn't have to be all born and bred Utah guys, all guys that played in the Majerus era. It doesn't have to be that. Obviously, Raf Chilius, Coach Chill, is not one of those guys. So as you're putting this staff together, if it makes sense, and Coach Eilert said it, if it's organic and it makes sense for both parties, then, great. Maybe you can make something happen. If this team goes on a little bit of run through college basketball crown, puts together some strong performances, shows a little bit of unity, shows that they've been well prepared, whether it's at Utah or somewhere else, that's the resume tape for Josh Eilert.
Well, you'd think that now he did mention that he came in kind of late in the summer after the roster had been filled out. He mentioned that he did not have a big role in recruiting any of the players on the team now. Sorry, I hesitated to say any because I don't know if he said that specifically, but he didn't have a big role in recruiting the roster right now. But by all accounts, the guys like him. He's developed a great relationship with all of them. It would seem to me that it would be beneficial for Alex Jensen to at least consider keeping a guy like Josh Eilert on staff. But that's obviously his decision, and whatever reasons he has to maybe not do that, we've got to respect it, and we got to trust Alex Jensen on that.
And you do, and sometimes it makes more sense to have a completely clean break. Sometimes it makes more sense to bridge that gap. Sometimes it makes more sense to realize that Josh Eilert is on the staff right now, but it's not like he's been here for the entire Craig Smith tenure and things like that. So that'll get worked out at the University of Utah. Also for Coach Eilert, 2 head coaching opportunities that are both interim coaching jobs
in back-to-back years, right? Wasn't it last year with West Virginia?
Yes, it was.
And he mentioned it was a completely different situation because he was given the interim title in the summertime, so he at least had a good amount of off season to prepare for it at West Virginia. This year, obviously, in the middle of the Big 12 season.
And I don't know if you ever had an opportunity, James, like a professional opportunity where they're just like, well, actually, I do know you've had a professional opportunity where they're just like, this is what you're working towards, but it's also not the ideal scenario for you to fill the role that you're working towards.
I may have had some experience with that.
You know what I mean? Like it's something that you kind of have to embrace when you're in certain industries, and in the coaching world, you don't say no to an opportunity, right? You don't. I very famously, at least in the MMA space, the first time I got to call a big-time fight was the same night I was fighting in a big-time fight.
Yeah.
It was just – I knew that that's what was going to give me the opportunity to call the big-time fight on TV. I'd done local stuff before. I knew I was capable of doing it. I knew I could do it. And I was like, no, let me do it on TV also. And it was
I'll call my own fight.
It was a gimmick. It was a gimmick for them, right? Because in a perfect world scenario, both the fight should be a thing that happens only by itself, and the head coaching, or not the head coach, the broadcasting opportunity should be a thing that happens all by itself. That's kind of how it is for this interim coaching world. And it's the same when you're a football coach, a basketball coach, whatever. In an ideal world, you get promoted to be the head coach because someone's just like, you're the best coordinator in the business. It's time for you to take the reins yourself. And you're like, oh, cool. I get to hire my own staff. I get to recruit my own players. I get to sign a long-term contract. I get to make the case to the athletic director, the university president, the GM, the boss, the whoever, that this is how we're going to do things. And I get to build my own culture. That's what a head coaching opportunity is supposed to be. An interim head coaching opportunity is they're like, hey, this has gone completely off the rails, and we want you to get it back on the rails.
And maybe we'll consider you for the full-time job after the season, but right now we just want you to do the best you can.
And by the way, in the case of Josh Eilert, that's a smart guy. That second part you just talked about was never part of the conversation.
Yeah.
It was never like, hey, and Alex Jensen be damned, you do a good job here. Like he's a realist. Yeah. So I want him
in a lot of interim opportunities, that is what's on the table, and this one didn't seem to be. And it's turned out it wasn't.
So whatever judgment you want to make on someone's ability or lack thereof to be a coach, to be a head coach, to be whatever, like make sure you put on the glasses of knowing that this is an interim opportunity and not the perfect scenario. We've gotten only positive feedback from players and for people around the program on how he's handled the situation so far. We'll get to see it a little bit more up close and personal down in Vegas. So looking forward to that.
By the way, it's a different situation because Gavin Peterson was given the full-time job immediately, but both basketball programs, one earlier in the season than the other, we had head coaching situations where the top assistant coach had to take over in the middle of the season. Not ideal, perfect situations, and obviously different ones because Gavin wasn't ever given the interim tag. He signed a multi-year deal immediately after he stepped in for Lynn Roberts when she took the LA Sparks job in November. But it's really interesting how neither one of these guys got the chance to recruit their roster by themselves. They didn't get the chance to hire their own staff. They had to take what was already in place from the coach that started the season, the head coach that started the season. And honestly, I mean, Gavin ended up making the NCAA tournament. They do really well, and under the circumstances, you got to feel like Josh Eilert did an incredible job too when he only had a few games left in the regular season, and I think it's good that he's looking forward to continuing to coach in this college basketball crown tournament, and even better that the players are looking forward to continuing to play. We heard Bill Riley, we heard Josh just say it now. This team's got a lot of unity, and I think Runnin' Utes fans should be really proud of that.
So that's the scenario right now with Utah men's basketball, and it's not an ideal one for the players that are finishing it out. I think the attitude reflected by Josh Eilert is a good indication of where everyone needs to be with the business of college sport right now. Both on air and during the break off the air, we talked about the fact that there's guys in the transfer portal right now that are exploring their opportunities and wondering what their future looks like while also wearing the uniform. That used to be the most counterintuitive. You weren't allowed to have that thought. all right? I'll say this. I know for a fact, all right? I know this happened. I was a walk-on. Nobody cared if I was at Utah at all, all right? There was not, like, I had friends on the team. Maybe they cared. But, like, it's not like the coaching staff when I was like, all right, I gotta leave. I got to go to Weber State. It's not like they were like, oh, no, not O'Connell. He's leaving, right? That reaction didn't exist. I know for a fact, actually, that they were watching film. The team was watching film after the fact, and I had a bad rep or something, and I got made fun of in a film session I wasn't even in.
Oh, no.
I know that happened, right? and instead of it, like, no one was going to – there's no need to come to my defense or anything, but it was like, yep, that guy doesn't belong here was the way that it was framed, right? That guy left us. That guy quit on us or whatever. That's not the attitude coaches have anymore. And,
they can't.
And they can't. And we've seen this, by the way, from the Utah football staff. We've seen it from the Utah basketball staff. It's happening right now. When guys put their name in the transfer portal, if this was 1997, every coach and every player on the team would have been like, fine, screw you. You're gone.
We don't need you.
We don't need you. We don't like you're quitting.
We never
on us.
liked you anyway.
You're not part of this. Like you don't want to be part of this moving forward. You're not all in, then you're in the way. Well, we saw Joe Williams years back now, before we called it the transfer portal. Joe Williams walked away from the team. Was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And he came back and ended up having a record-setting game, right? Mekhi Bernard, who ended up being your most consistent, reliable, important offensive player in this past season.
Team captain the last half of the season.
Mekhi Bernard was leaving.
He was going to South Carolina.
He was in the transfer. He was like, all right. Nate Johnson did leave and now is back. And this is all great. These are all good things. All right? This is all exactly.
Jalen Dixon, another guy, entered the portal, came back, similar to Mekhi Bernard. Yeah.
And by the way, it's not just Utah.
So many others, just about every school.
And it's just so interesting. If you were involved in college athletics, as a fan, all of you've been involved in college athletics. If you rewind to 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, when somebody left the program, it was like, oh, how dare they? When somebody considered leaving the program, you were just like, oh, quitter? That guy? Don't want him then. Loser. And now it's just like, that's a business decision. They are testing the waters of free agency. They're seeing what NIL value is out there. They're seeing what scholarship value is out there. They're seeing if there's more playing time to be had somewhere. And in fact, now the attitude has shifted so far that if you have a problem with somebody leaving and you express that, then people get mad at you for expressing some distaste for the guy who left.
Yeah.
Like if you make fun of Keanu Tanuvasa for leaving Utah, there's a vocal enough contingent like you can't make fun of that. And I'm probably more on that side of the spectrum than no, you just got to accept the fact that these guys are doing what they think is best for them. Whether you agree with the reasons, whether you agree with their priorities or their assessment of whether that's better for them or not, you have to accept that that's what people are going to do now. Just the same way that somebody has to give you that kind of grace if you're a manager at a grocery store and some other grocery store comes along and is just like, hey, are you considering leaving this grocery store? Because we'd like to hire you. We'll give you an extra $30,000 a year. Now suddenly you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not all that loyal to Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting time.
Well, it's a thing this has existed in professional sports for a long time. The idea of free agency. Every time a guy has a chance to enter free agency in pro sports, if they haven't signed a contract extension beforehand, they've gone through their contract year, they're about to enter free agency. There's a lot of them who re-sign with the team that they were on the previous year. There's so many of them, but every single one of them hear the other teams out. Hear the other team's pitches. Okay, what do the Knicks have to offer me? What do the Hornets have to offer me if I'm a Utah Jazz star free agent? And then, yeah, a lot of them leave and take whatever offer another team has. But there's a huge number of them who come back to the team that they were just on, but they all consider leaving because that's their right as a free agent, and it's just come to the college game now. And like you said, I think the majority of people have come around to not feeling like, oh, they're just a quitter, feeling like, no, this is their chance to see what else is out there, and if they come back, then they liked what they already had more than what they could get.
And this leads me to say the thing I'm going to say at least once a week on this program, and you're probably going to get so irritated of me saying it. College sports are pro sports. That's where we're at now. That's where we've been for a few years. And the only difference is that pro sports are a lot more organized and restrictive with their contracts. College sports is pro sports with perpetual free agency every minute of every day for every player. Which, by the way, you would hate so bad in pro sports.
My gosh.
Can you imagine if you're a Utah
Owners
Jazz
would never
fan?
agree to that at the negotiating table.
Can you imagine being like a Utah Jazz fan and you're just like, hey, we are going to get Cooper Flagg. We're going to draft him. It's going to be amazing. And then someone came along and was just like, oh, my gosh, congratulations. That's going to be the greatest 6 minutes of your life because he's immediately a free agent. Wait, what? No. We're going to sign him to the rookie deal, and then he's going to, give us the hometown thing where we can give him an extra year on the contract for more money. No. No, that's an NBA rule. We're going to do things the college way now. He's going to commit. You're going to draft him, and then whoever wants him could just pay him the most to leave. You imagine pro sports would be bedlam, anarchy. Folks would burn every single jersey they had. You'd throw up if your pro sports teams were subject to the same whims of players and agents and things like that college sports is now. You couldn't stand it. And that's where we're at with college sports. It's insane. Anyway, got to take a break. Big thanks to Josh Eilert and everyone who made that one possible for us. We'll call that part of our Big 12 at noon coverage, brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Go to mountainlandsupply.com. Also, reminder for anyone who wants to swing out to the show tomorrow, we're going to be at Les Schwab Tire Center in Roy, 5832 South, 1900 West. It's opening day of Major League Baseball. It is Sweet 16 basketball in the NCAA tournament. We're going to have hot dogs. We're going to have hamburgers. And, yes, we are going to have tater tots.
Is there a certain player in state associated with tater tots? I hadn't heard.
Richie Saunders, in case you didn't know.
That's right.
Was it grandfather or great-grandfather invented the tater tot?
Couple generations back, at least. Yeah.
Somewhere back in his family, the tater tot was invented by the Saunders family. Tragically, the family fortune is not available to Richie Saunders.
But he is getting some of that back in the form of an NIL deal with Orida, so there's that.
We're going to have great giveaways, oil changes, things like that. Join the Sean O'Connell Show tomorrow from 11 to 2 at Les Schwab Tire Center up in Roy.
Yeah, the tater tots, by the way, from our friends at Warren's. You a Warren's guy?
I'm a huge Warren's guy.
The Warren's, the Roy Warren's, not too far from the Les Schwab up that you'll be at tomorrow for the Sean O'Connell Show. So thank you to Warren's for providing those tater tots.
Let's see. We've got Warren's is a Northern Utah thing. I think there's one in South Jordan, maybe.
Yeah, it's a newer one in South Jordan. Yep. But most of them in northern Davis County, Weber County.
Yep. Plain City, Roy. There it is, Warren's, South Jordan. So down here in the valley, you can find one, or just head up to South Ogden, to Syracuse, etc. Shout out Warren's. I love that Warren's menu, man. Now I'm hungry, James. Thanks a lot. We're going to take a quick one here. We're going to come back with Isaac Shade talking college hoops as the Sweet 16 does begin tomorrow. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Gets it inside to Cato.
And one for Cato.
He's going back to the free throw line.
Time to talk a little college hoop here. March Madness upon us, Sweet 16 tomorrow. That was a highlight from Keba Keita in the and one in BYU's second-round win over Wisconsin. That sound courtesy of TNT Sports. Brad Nessler on that call. BYU versus Alabama tomorrow night in the Sweet 16. Isaac Shade joins us to talk about that matchup and all things college hoop. Isaac, welcome back to the show. How are you?
What's up, OC? I'm doing great. I'm so excited for the Sweet 16, and I know that you guys are stoked for it. This is awesome to see BYU on this crazy run. Let's keep it going.
Before we get to BYU, I got to ask you the burning question for me. I know it's only a one-year sample size where we've got all power schools, all power conference schools in the Sweet 16, but is Cinderella dead? Do we just have to accept this as the reality of college basketball moving forward?
No, we absolutely do not have to accept this as the reality, Sean. It's funny you ask. I actually have put a lot of thought into this over the weekend, and until further notice, to me, it is this year that's the anomaly. And here's why I say that. You go back 2 years ago, our Final Four was a 4, 2 5s, and an 8. You look back at recent Final Fours, and in each of them, we've had at least an 8 seed, right, in multiple of them. Not last year, but the 3 years prior to that, we had at least one 15 seed in the Sweet 16 3 seasons in a row. And now we get to this year, and I know it's a pretty stark contrast, but if we get 2 or 3 years down the road and it's been this over and over and over again, sure, then we can say Cinderella's dead. To me, where I'm at as of today is that this tournament is the anomaly.
I hope you're right. I actually kind of think you're right. And we've had, James, my producer, and a couple other people pointed out, like, we were a made shot or a missed shot here or there away from having, Colorado State be here in the Sweet 16.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I'm not ready to panic about it just yet. But with the direction that college sports has moved and what the transfer portal has done and NIL opportunities have done, there's certainly a consolidation of power happening in college basketball. And is that what we have to blame for, the power dynamic, the shift in favor of the SEC, which still could get 6 Elite 8 teams? That is still a mathematical possibility. And look, Utah joined the Big 12 Conference. We're just like, oh, man, that's the toughest basketball conference in the country. Actually not. It's the SEC, at least in this year.
Yeah. Per Ken Palm's metrics, the Big 12 was actually the third best conference in basketball this year behind both the SEC and the Big 10, which goes back to that consolidation you talk about with those two conferences being the two, richest in terms of media rights deals now. And so, I mean, this is certainly something we got to keep our eyes on. Now, here's the good thing. Like, the other side of this coin is that while we love Cinderella, the thing I always talk about is upsets early, chalk late. And this is what people want to see, is they want to see the upsets, but they don't want to see mismatched basketball games when we get to the second weekend. And so the good thing is that the basketball we're going to see this weekend and next is going to be so high level. And there are I remember Stephen A. Smith earlier this week, I think First Take, just talking about like, oh man, the NCAA tournament's dead. Well, the numbers came back and this was the most first watch weekend ever in the history of the NCAA tournament. So while we're disappointed in the Cinderella, the product that is college basketball is alive and well, very much. Thank you.
With that in mind, the upsets early, chalk late, where does BYU fit into that? Because look, they're a really good basketball team right now. They've got a potential NBA first round pick in Yegor Demin. You've got Richie Saunders, the tater tot king. You've got some powerful defensive and rebounding presence. There's balance to it. When their shots go, they can score with anybody. So where does BYU fit into that philosophy of the chalk would be Alabama knocking the Cougs off in the Sweet 16?
Sure. I mean, it truly is incredible how this thing has come together for BYU down the stretch here, winning 11 of the last 12 with the lone loss being to Houston in the Big 12 tournament. And I mean, part of this is Kevin Young's a great basketball coach, right? We knew this coming in. I just don't think we thought it would happen now and this quickly and in the way it has. But good grief, this team has found themselves. It's so fun to watch. It's a great product. I've been laughing all week because, we had the whole coaching carousel that SMU set off that ultimately brought Kevin Young to BYU. And the last three teams in that chain, BYU, Kentucky, and Arkansas, are all sitting here in the Sweet 16 together with their first-year head coach. So that's it's just so fun and neat how that's been able to happen. But sure, maybe just because of the chalkiness of this tournament, BYU is one of the couple lowest seeds, but I by no means would call them Cinderella, and I mean that in all the best ways possible. Because they're a legit basketball team that is cooking, and when you find yourself down the stretch of a season, literally anything can happen. And specific to this matchup with Bama, I've been joking this week that it's like over under 80.5 3-point attempts in this game. And I joked about it to our great Locked On BYU host, Mr. Jake Hatch, and he took me seriously. He was like, well, I think that might be a little high, but just like the fact that he even thought that was a possibility of 83-point attempts made it crazy. So I think there is something that could really happen here. If BYU could get some length on Mark Sears and cause some problems for him, good grief, this could happen.
Is this BYU Alabama game going to be the highest scoring of the Sweet 16 games?
The funny thing is, if it's not, it might be Duke and Arizona on the other side of the East bracket. I haven't actually compared, and OC, you might have it in front of you. I haven't compared the score totals for all 8 matchups, but it's got to be close, right? Like I'm looking at it right now. 156 is the highest. 153, 131. I don't see the total there for this one, but it's got. I mean, I would imagine it's got to be like 160 or something like that.
I mean, both of these teams are capable. BYU is coming off of the 91-point game, right, against Wisconsin, and that, by the way, that game was a statistical outlier and an anomaly, and it ended up being a 2-point game. BYU shot so well from every place, 90-something from the stripe, 40-plus from 3, 40-plus from the field, almost 50% from the field, actually, and still escaped on a final possession stop in that one. So, I mean, that's the margin for error in March gets incredibly thin.
It really does. And, I mean, Wisconsin has been great this season in ways I did not expect. John Tonje was perhaps the most overlooked transfer portal guy that just blew up. And so to not only get the lead, but then to hold it like that against this Wisconsin team making a furious charge was nothing short of impressive. And that's all. I don't care if you win by 87 or half a point in the tournament. It's literally just keep on trucking, right? And then what do we got to do now against Alabama? If we survive that, what do we got to do to take down the tallest team in the nation in Duke, assuming they knock off Arizona? And so just great resolve from the Cougs down the stretch there.
173.5, by the way, is what ESPN bet, the ESPN bet sportsbook says is the over-under on this BYU Alabama game. 173.5, with Alabama being a 4.5-point favorite at the moment.
That is insane, but it makes sense, right? Like, it's crazy. I'm here for it.
Yeah, going to be a fun one. Isaac Shade, my guest here, talking all things college hoop here on the Sean O'Connell Show. So obviously the local interest is going to be very, very focused on BYU versus Alabama, and the other lion's share of local interest is going to be on the Duke game because everyone is hoping that the Utah Jazz will be given an opportunity to draft Cooper Flagg, and they're doing their darndest, losing as many games as possible. But where else should our eyes be in this Sweet 16?
In terms of players that might come to Utah, or just great basketball?
No, just great basketball, if you want to do it through that lens also. But let's start with the great basketball, the other games that you're most excited about in the Sweet 16.
Back to our earlier point about the chalk, I'm excited. Literally, I can find a storyline in every one of these games that gets me going and excites me. For example, Auburn, number 1 overall seed against Michigan. Michigan comes in with, I mean, they're not the San Antonio Spurs of the Admiral and Tim Duncan, but they do have twin towers in Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf, who are both legit 7-footers. That like Janai Broome is not that. But Janai Broome is the leading shot blocker in this basketball game. Also, Danny Wolf last year when he played for Yale knocked off a team in the NCAA tournament, and that team went by the name of the Auburn Tigers. So Danny Wolf gets his second shot to knock off Bruce Pearl's club here in March. I love that. When we look at Kentucky and Tennessee, Kentucky has beaten the Vols both times they played this year. There's that old adage of it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, but I legitimately think Kentucky can win this game straight up, not just against the spread. That's very, very possible when we get it. Derek Queen from Maryland in this matchup with Florida. Is Derek Queen had you talked about that Colorado State potential earlier. He had the lone buzzer beater of the entire first weekend. Was it a travel? He says no. Some referees say yes, but they're dancing regardless. Him against Florida's very deep front court of Alex Condon and Ruben Chenyolu and Micah Hanlogton, who was a redshirt and said, I'm going to come in and help this team and sacrifice one of my years of eligibility to be part of this. All of that going up against the Crab Five. There's just so many fun storylines. I cannot wait to see it. But I truly think that for me, Kentucky-Tennessee is my favorite game of the first round.
Crab Five.
Sweet 16.
Crab Five, by the way, one of my favorite, I guess, collective nicknames we've ever had in sports.
It's brilliant.
It's so good.
Brilliant. It's great.
We were talking earlier about Utah basketball. Some details have emerged on Alex Jensen's contract, 6 years, $3.6 million plus, and obviously plenty of incentives and things like that. He was a great player at the school. We haven't had an opportunity to pick your brain about the hire since it was announced. He's finishing out the season with the Dallas Mavericks, and he's filling out his staff and things like that. Your thoughts on Alex Jensen back to the alma mater at University of Utah?
I think this is a great move, right? It's funny how we see some of these things go in waves like this. And here's what I mean by that. A couple of years ago, there was this, consistent push. Good grief. I'm so sorry, Sean. Where we had multiple schools like, hey, you know what we should do? Let's go find an alum, whether he has coaching experience or not. Let's bring him in and make that what we're doing. Let's just go get an alum, somebody that maybe played in the NBA or one of our greatest names. We saw it with Juwan Howard at Michigan, with Patrick Ewing, all of this kind of stuff. And then now we're starting to see this little bit of a trend that started with BYU and Kevin Young. And then now we see another team hiring, it's funny, in the same state, a somebody that is an assistant at the at the NBA level and bringing them in. We've also seen now a third school. Florida State is doing this with Leonard Hamilton stepping away and Luke Lux stepping in. He, similar to this situation here with Coach Jensen, Luke played at Florida State, was an assistant with the Sacramento Kings, and now he's coming to Tallahassee. So this is the third high major school now that we've seen do this in the past 2 coaching cycles. And the success of Kevin Young, I think, makes this is a thing that coaching searches are going to look at. This is working at BYU, and they're going to be able to sell that in that hiring process. So I think this is a great move, not only because it's somebody that has been at the NBA level that will be able to bring that cachet to the Utes. It's somebody that has great connectivity to this program as an alum, the Rick Majerus connection, all of that. And so it's like on paper, it makes a ton of sense to me. Obviously, we got to see if it can work. Is the money there? That's just part and parcel of what we got to look at now in successful college things is, do we have the money to go out and, like this verbiage or not, buy the players that we need to be able to have to compete, especially at the Big 12 level, which is very difficult. If all that is there, and we've seen it to be there, when there's a new coach, there's like an influx of NIL support. And so I think that will be a good and helpful thing. And so on paper, I like it. Will it work on court? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, in that vein, the college basketball transfer portal is open, so big names already jumping into the portal. Utah's going to have to be a player in the portal, but That's true for literally every program in the country right now.
Right.
One of the most intriguing guys, I saw you tweeting about this, one of the most intriguing guys is New Mexico player, Mountain West player of the year from New Mexico, Donovan Dent. And where do you think he ends up? I know that every big school's interested in him. St. John's maybe, go to New York, play for your old coach's dad. I mean, it feels like he's got plenty of opportunities. Where does a player like that end up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on, Sean. He's a guy that's going to be able to name his school, basically, right? Like, he might go play for Coach Pitino. He might go play for Coach Pitino. I mean to double up on that. Like, we could see him at St. John's. I also wouldn't be surprised to see him follow Richard to Xavier as well. But that said, like, I'm always trying to see the just what are the telling things. Like, he was in the portal before it was announced that Richard was headed to Xavier, right? Is there anything to that of, like, he was transferring one way or another, and so maybe that means he's not necessarily going to go to Xavier. He's somebody that we've started to see the schools connected to him or that are reaching out to him, and as expected, it's a who's who, right? As you said, the Mountain West Player of the Year, can do a little bit of everything. There are some things that would be, like, for example, he's not a volume 3-point shooter. So, like, he's 6'2". Those to me are the two biggest cons, because everything else is there. He's a scorer. He attacks. If I remember correctly, 6.5 free throw attempts per game this past season at New Mexico. And it's not – sometimes we talk about up transfers not going, but Mountain West to me is essentially a power conference, right? It's the sixth best conference in Division I out of the 31 that we have. I'm not worried about him not translating at the high major level. He won't be the most athletic player on every team, but he is an above average athlete, and it's all going to work. It's just, is his size okay, and will teams sag off of him and force him to be a shooter? That is the one caveat that we got to watch. But ultimately, Donovan Dent is going to go wherever he wants, and he's going to command a ton of money in the process. I think these numbers are just going to continue to be more and more astronomical until we get some sort of regulation surrounding it.
All right, it is March 26th, and you're always allowed to revise your answer the next time we talk to you.
Okay.
Who's winning the national championship as of today?
Duke. I had Auburn in my bracket. I have been in on Auburn all season long, but I think they are the most vulnerable of the one seeds right now. Florida just got their wake-up call game against UConn. Every Final Four run, every national champion run seems like they've got to have one of those games. They have depth and talent in both the front and backcourt. Houston's floor is incredibly high because of everything they're capable of doing. I think they walk over Purdue on Friday night. And then it's a tough game against Tennessee in the Elite Eight, but I think Houston should be able to do that. But Duke, the Cooper Flagg ankle storyline ended up being a nothing burger. He's fine. And even if you focus let's say you're Arizona in your game planning and everything's focused around Cooper Flagg, well, you do that at your own risk, because then Con Knipple will drop 30 on you, or Tyrese Proctor is going to go absolutely nuclear like he did last weekend. If that's happening, if he's going to continue to shoot like that, it's over. Game over. And you factor in that it's not just Duke's incredible freshmen. They have experienced upperclassmen transfers, including Mason Gillis, who was on Purdue's national runner-up last year. So he's got all that experience to help the locker room. I just think Duke's got everything they need to win this thing. And as you said, anybody can do it on any given day, sure. But the risk mitigation choice is to say Duke.
By the way, that's a Tar Heel. That's the host of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast saying that. So the fact that Isaac Shea did it without throwing up in his mouth a little bit is pretty remarkable. Thanks for your time, Isaac.
I'm a professional, Sean. I'm a professional.
One of the best in the biz. Thanks for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great stuff from Isaac Shade, host of Locked On College Basketball and the aforementioned Locked On Heels podcast. All right, it's hot today. It's hot in Salt Lake City. The energy efficiency of your home is affected very, very drastically buy your windows. If you have those old single-pane windows with the bad frames, now's the time to upgrade. And if you're thinking about upgrading and replacing those windows, that thought process should begin and end with Advanced Windows. Advanced Window Products, advancedwindows.com, 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. And maybe, just maybe, you're not ready to pull the trigger on full-time, full big, like, remodel window replacements. That's fine. Maybe the thing that can make your home a little bit more energy efficient is getting some high-quality window coverings and stopping the crazy mountain sun from beating down and heating up your house too much. They can cover you on the window coverings as well. Spoiler alert, am going to have to be calling Advanced Windows very soon because they're one of the only companies I trust. They're the only company I trust to put a pet door in a sliding glass door. They've got proprietary technology to make that possible, and I'm going to need that pretty soon. Don't tell my kids yet. Very, very exciting developments coming to the O'Connell household. But I'm going to rely on Advanced Window Products when that happens, and you should too. 801-850-9100. Get the window coverings, get the windows themselves, and whatever it is you're asking them for, even if it's just that pet door, everything is covered. It's a lifetime warranty that is handled right here in-house in Salt Lake City, no middleman. That savings and that reliability is passed on to you, the consumer. Hot lunch. We're doing it an hour late, but you really need to hear about this because it's actually a lunch-related hot lunch next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Opening day in Major League Baseball is tomorrow. James Peterson is a big-time baseball fan. He's going to be wearing a baseball jersey tomorrow. I could venture a guess.
How did you know?
It's just, you're seasonally appropriate. Tom Callahan's going to join us from Utah Hockey Club. We're going to talk a little hockey here in about 5 minutes, by the way. But I have to get to this because I love Frankenfoods, and I love these lists that we get every year when baseball's rolling back around of the craziest ballpark foods that are being introduced around Major League Baseball. James, I'm paying for your plane ticket, all right? You're going to make your decision to go to one of these games based solely on the menu item that I give you right now.
Should I also guess which ballpark after you read them?
No, it's not a quiz. You're just choosing.
Okay.
You're just going to choose. You're going to choose. Okay.
Okay.
You get to go to Arizona for the Filthy Mac fries, all right? These are Cajun fries. They have pork belly, bacon, crispy onions, and they look delightful. All right.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. You almost had me at Cajun fries. I like the the different seasonings on the fries.
Okay.
Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes really good. That intrigues me.
Okay. You could go to Pittsburgh for Polish cannonballs. All right. These are fried balls full of egg noodles, kielbasa, cabbage, bacon, and cheddar cheese.
Okay. Also sounds like a winner.
Okay. You can go to Baltimore for a Warehouse burger. This is just 2 beef patties, queso sauce, fried onions on the burger. It's not exotic enough for me.
I mean,
pretzel bun, if that helps you.
Okay, pretzel bun and queso sauce is good, but I think I'd choose Pittsburgh or Arizona over that one.
All right. The White Sox have a celebration cake milkshake. It's the 125th anniversary of White Sox baseball, and it's a birthday cake milkshake.
1900.
Yeah.
For when Chicago White Sox got started. Okay. It's a birthday cake flavored milkshake?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I love a milkshake, but definitely Arizona and Pittsburgh still the leaders.
Okay. Houston has something called the Daddy Mac dog.
Daddy Mac.
Foot-long ballpark dog with brisket, mac and cheese, and fried pickles.
Oh, my gosh.
That sounds awesome.
That is a loaded see, I would have thought the White Sox would do a specialty Chicago dog.
They should, but instead they're just going a birthday cake milkshake.
Going,
knock it off.
Celebration cake. Yeah, that's a miss by
that
the
Houston
White
one
Sox.
sounds good. The Daddy Mac dog sounds really, really good. Blue Velvet Whoopie Pie if you want to go to Kansas City.
Whoopie Pie.
Yes.
This is a family show, OC.
It's
we not talking about whoopie pie.
A whoopie pie is just like it's like 2 cake-ish cookies with whipped cream in the middle.
We're gonna have to ask Bill tomorrow
if
he's had a Kansas City Royals whoopie pie.
The New York Yankees are introducing, the souvenir helmet.
Yeah.
Instead of a sundae in there, it's going to be tiramisu in the Yankees helmet.
See, not a tiramisu guy.
Okay.
And even less of a tiramisu guy because the Yankees decided to do that.
Okay,
so,
great.
Of course the Yankees decide the one that I don't like. Yeah.
Philadelphia Phillies are offering s'mores quesadillas.
S'mores quesadillas? Okay. That's like, did you ever watch Psych?
No.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, they do a mashup food truck and they do weird combos like a s'mores quesadilla.
Okay.
Sounds like a Psych Sean Spencer special there.
It looks pretty good, but the thing with s'mores is you don't have to do anything else to them. They're already kind of perfect. So just make me a s'more. Don't make me a quesadilla. This one, Seattle Mariners. It's called the What Up Corn Dog.
Corn Dog.
I love a good corn dog.
Of course.
And so it's honey battered corn dog.
Yes.
And it's like spicy Cheeto crumble covering, but it's teal. It's like Mariners color.
Okay.
So it's
Mariners spicy Cheeto garnish on the corn dog.
On a crunchy corn dog. And then the Toronto Blue Jays have cotton candy fries, and it's exactly what you think. It's fries with white and blue cotton candy on top and then a sweet like frosting drizzle.
No. I mean, I'd try one just to see what it tasted like, but no.
I'm going for those. I love those.
Really?
That would be my first choice. I think would be this foot-long Daddy Mac dog.
Really?
Brisket, mac and cheese, and fried pickles on a giant hot dog. Yeah.
Yeah, pack the Tums with that one. No, I think I'd go with the other loaded one that's probably needs some acid reflux medication alongside with it too. The Arizona one,
the Filthy Mac fries.
Filthy Mac fries. That's
right.
what I would go with.
White cheddar mac and cheese, pork belly bacon, crispy onions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, James,
my three least favorite, the tiramisu in the Yankees helmet. Like neither of those will do it for me.
Okay.
And then the birthday cake milkshake, despite how much I love a milkshake, and I don't mind birthday cake flavor. I just not going to a game for that.
Right.
And then the cotton candy fries. None of those sound.
See,
that
cotton
good.
candy fries sound amazing to me. I love sweet and savory.
Yeah.
So you give me some salty fries, and then you throw cotton candy on top of it. Heck yeah.
Maybe it's because after I turned like 8 or 9, I was done with cotton candy. Like maybe it's been too long.
Wow. Breaking news. James Peterson is a cotton candy hater. I can't get behind that, James.
What's the English term for cotton candy? Is it candy floss? Is that what they call it?
I don't know.
Anyway, I'm out on it.
Okay.
And
wow.
I'm out on that.
All right. Well, James is fired, and
certainly the tiramisu.
We'll
I don't know if you can fire me after the email I just showed you.
That's right. I can't. Tom Callahan joins us to talk Utah Hockey Club next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Center in behind the net. Bit of a rough ride there on Cooley. Comes in front. Shot on the goal. It's Dylan Gunther. You can't stop that. 1-0 Utah.
Dylan Gunther's 100th career point is the highlight there, courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group Media. Matt McConnell on the call. It was 1 goal for Utah Hockey Club. It was 5 for the visiting Detroit Red Wings. Not the result anyone's looking forward to as Utah Hockey Club tries to make a playoff push with the St. Louis Blues staying red hot and now 8 points ahead in that final wild card spot race. Getting serious and dire for Utah Hockey Club in terms of that playoff picture. Tom Callahan, Utah Hockey Club insider. Callahan on air, if you're not already following, kind enough to join us on the show today. Tom, welcome back. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back on. I'm probably I have a rosier outlook than Utah Hockey Club's playoff hopes at this point.
Yeah, it's what do we got? 11 games left or 12 games left, and 8 points to make up. You're gonna have to not only get red hot, but you're gonna have to have St. Louis and Calgary and Vancouver stay cold, and that it doesn't feel overly likely. But I don't want to get lost in that at this moment because. Look, if we have an NHL franchise in Salt Lake City, there's a lot of promising young talents on this team. The future is incredibly bright, and we just played a Dylan Gunther highlight, 100 career points so far for a young man who is locked up and is part of this franchise's future for the foreseeable future. Let's talk a little bit of Dylan Gunther, your leading goal scorer, and a guy like how close is he to his ceiling, and what should we expect from his growth the final games of this season, and, of course, moving forward?
Well, first of all, you're right. And the bigger point here is that there's a lot to like and even love about the Utah Hockey Club. And anyone who listened to us at the beginning of the season when we were talking about this is where we said they were probably going to be. So expectations were tempered, I think, appropriately. So this is not the end of the world here. We didn't expect them to win the Stanley Cup. Dylan Gunther has turned out to be an incredible find for the Utah Hockey Club. And, you know, it's always nice when you see a young player develop into who you want them to be or who you think they can be, right? It's all about potential. And watching Gunther really blossom this year. I mean, the one time on the power play, which was the call we just heard there, he's deadly. He shoots the puck as good or better than anyone I've seen. And I remember back a couple of months ago when he was handed this $7.1 million extension all the way through 2033, a lot of people said, man, that's an awful lot of money to give a guy who hasn't really proven himself in any kind of long-term capacity. But Bill Armstrong, this is a wise signing because he is going to turn into probably Utah's top goal scorer. He's the sniper. And you have him wrapped up all the way to 2033 at what will become a reasonable price because, remember, the salary cap's going up in the NHL. His signing was a stroke of genius. He is developing into an amazing player, and he is going to be one of a handful of guys as you look at this roster that leads this team into the future.
They also extended Vejmelka. Veggie is locked up, not quite as long or for quite as much money as Gunther is. Your thoughts on that? You know, making him the goaltender of your future, or at least your short-term future.
You know, I like the signing. 2 years ago, Veg was the guy over Ingram. Last year, it was Ingram who was the guy. And kind of given what we've seen, and especially the personal issues for Connor Ingram, and you know, I can only wish him the best as he tries to get past all of that. Utah Hockey Club obviously knew that much more internally than we did exterior, media and fans. So two things here. I think Veg has earned, especially this year, in a contract year with the pressure on, the starting job. And at only 28, still has a ton of upside. A lot of goaltenders we see peak in their late 20s, early 30s. So this is a perfect window. I think that $4.75 million is a reasonable term as people roll their eyes, who make normal wages for a starting goaltender for the next 3 years, and actually beyond. He's to 2030. I think it's reasonable, and I think that it will be a good value signing for Utah as they move into this window of playoff contention in the next couple of years. So I like having him locked up. They're not overspending on a goaltender, which I think some teams have, and it really kind of hurts you flexibility-wise, cap-wise. So what we've seen over the last year since this franchise has moved to Utah is that they have gone about quietly securing their future with their youngsters, supporting them with able-bodied veterans, whom they've also extended. Ian Cole got another year on his deal, and I love the Oli Mata extension as a veteran defenseman who's only 30. So he probably has several good years in front of him, in my opinion, and he's got 3 more on this contract. I think that's the perfect length. I really like what they've done. The front office deserves some kudos here, and they're not flashy about it. It's not a loud kind of look at us, look what we're doing, but it's just a quiet confidence in the way they're building.
Staying on Veggie here for a second, with the Ingram situation and the call-up of Stauber, he's played a lot of hockey. I think it was, 9 in a row, something like that, and not the normal rotation out and rest schedule. I know these guys are hockey players, and we have to start we have to continue to recalibrate our expectation for how much they want to be on the ice. But when you're talking about the finish of this season and the 12 remaining games, I mean, how many of those are we going to see Veggie skating and starting?
Well, and with the gap being what it is now, I would have been a fan of seeing Jackson Stauber get a few more starts already. And it's not that he hasn't shown himself capable, but I think the tendency is to want to go with the guy who you've anointed your number one, but to the point where, look, in the past, we've seen it backfire on this team. They did a similar thing to Aiden Hill. They were dealing with injuries. Aiden Hill got called up. He was the guy. They rode him, I think, for almost 20, if not 20 straight starts, and he got hurt. And it's going to happen. The guys wear down. And so I don't know if you consider it a night off for Veg where he only played 1 period against Edmonton. But I would have liked to have seen him get more rest. And I was projecting out, even looking at the schedule, places where you could put Stauber in, even though every win is critical right now. He's got to play somewhere on this road trip. I don't know if it's Tampa. I don't know if it's Florida. Maybe it's Chicago, but you have to rest Veg at some point. Otherwise, you're risking the potential for a longer-term injury for a season that is kind of getting away from you anyway. And the only thing that does concern me is that the history of this team has been to ride goaltenders into the ground, and I would like to see that stop.
Tom Callahan is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Utah Hockey Club. They're falling behind, as we mentioned at the top of this conversation. 8 points out of the final wild card spot right now, largely because the St. Louis Blues have gotten incredibly hot. 5 goals, 7 goals, 4 goals, 4 goals, 4, 6 in the last outing against the Canadiens. I don't know how much Blues hockey you've been able to catch through this stretch, but what's been the key in them heating up like this?
Well, as you mentioned, they've won 7 in a row, and you know what? I would not be shocked if they actually passed Minnesota and got into the 7th position, and Minnesota becomes the 8th. You know what? They're playing Blues hockey. What we've seen, and as you mentioned, the offense is clicking right now, and it's doing really, really well. But it's not a secret formula. They're shooting the puck. They're getting bodies to the front of the net. St. Louis is a team that traditionally has always been a team, I dare say, what Utah Hockey Club wants to be. They can lean on you. They can be physical. They have some skill. They're getting great goaltending right now into Jordan Binnington, which he is one of the streakiest goalies I've ever seen in my life. But when he's on, he's almost unbeatable. And that gives your team the confidence to maybe take a chance here and there. St. Louis is just getting it done with good, solid all-around play. Their forecheck is working. They're recovering pucks. They're doing all the things that Utah wants to do. They're not quite there yet, but again, this is a season of development for the Utah Hockey Club. But St. Louis is just so solid. I've been watching them, and I am having a really, really hard time finding fault with any part of their game right now.
All right, swinging the focus back to this Utah Hockey Club. they're keeping the nose to the grindstone. You hear them talk post game. You hear them talk at pregame skates. This is a group that is just going to control what they can control, try to win as many games as possible, let the chips fall where they may. And we've seen since the break, since the Four Nations break, it's a much healthier squad, and it feels like it's starting to take shape, and we can kind of expect this to be what Utah hockey looks like moving forward. How close to a, for lack of a better term, finished product is this roster right now? Is this team right now with the guys, the pairing skating together defensively, with the lines not having to shift around so much to accommodate injury?
Well, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned the defense because they've been so beat up all season that they're finally starting to get familiar with one another. But that's going to take time. And that is one of the bright spots that I've mentioned. Right now, at this point last year, there were no defensemen coming into next year. Now we have 6, actually 7, that we know are going to be here in the next season. And I think that's tremendous. The Utah Hockey Club getting the chance to play their top 6 together right now, Sergachev, Dursey, Marino, Cole, Mata, and Kesselring, get these guys the time they need together. There will be chances to add to this if they need to. So we're starting to see that as a finished product. The other thing, too, is even up front, the forward group is together for next year for the most part. There's a couple of question marks. Bukestad, McBain, I would love to see McBain back. Bukestad, if it's a reasonable amount, I would love to see him back. So I don't dislike any of this group the way it is. And I think that, as you mentioned, the chance for them to play together now, and look, yeah, there's pressure in a playoff race. It's going to make you stronger and more educated as to what you can and cannot accomplish, I think, in the long run. It's a learning process, and this is exactly where I thought they'd be. I'd love to see them win 2 out of 3 down the stretch, make it close, and start beating the teams that they need to beat. There's a lot of hockey to be played yet. The other place where we've seen growth is at home. They've gotten so much better at home. At Delta Center, this team is finding ways to win now, and I think that's massively encouraging.
There are a lot of Utah Jazz fans right now watching NCAA tournament basketball because they know the names to watch. They know about Harper. They know about Cooper Flagg. They know about VJ Edgecombe. And they know that the Jazz are going to be drafting in a lottery position this year. And they want to see what the future might hold. Well, college hockey is not something that this market has really ever had to take any interest in, but that's also starting. Tournament hockey, Frozen Four, the great tradition there. Again, we're adopting all these things as we go as a team with an NHL franchise. How deep do you dive into the prospects and what we're seeing on the college level and on the juniors level right now with an NHL draft also approaching?
I think that so this is kind of where it can get fun. Now, I will temper this. If you're a Jazz fan, if you're a longtime basketball fan, you know very well one player can turn the entire fortunes of your franchise around. That is really rare in hockey. Yeah. It's a little different. So if you're expecting Utah to be able to find that one golden nugget who makes them so amazing, I don't want to say it's impossible because it could happen, but it's real difficult. So it's a little bit more of a cast a wide net and improve at your different positions. So just know that going in, Jazz fans. But I am paying attention, absolutely, because playoff runs, whether it's at the junior level, which they are jumping into now, chasing what's called the Memorial Cup in Major Junior in Canada, that is really high-level hockey, as is the NCAA college tournament. When you see these guys play, it's funny. So you mentioned this. I covered the last Frozen Four that I covered was in Buffalo, and it was the coming out party for a guy that we know now very well, Cale Makar. Makar was playing at UMass at the time, and now he's dominating in the NHL with the Colorado Avalanche. But he kind of was under the radar until that tournament. And watching him at that tournament, I thought to myself, this guy is amazing. How is he still in college hockey? And he was for another 2 days. He went straight to the Avalanche after that and jumped right in and proved he belonged. So I think if If you're looking for something kind of fun and you've never done that before, especially once it gets to the Frozen Four, kind of like the Final Four, once it gets to that level, you will see players just really stand out and who jump out at you. They may not be a prospect for your team. They may not have even been drafted yet, but that's kind of fun as a hockey fan to see who you think is going to be the next big thing.
Tom Callahan for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utah Hockey Club. Gary Bettman doubled down on the idea that Salt Lake City could host a Winter Classic game, an outdoor NHL game. Obviously, we've got a couple of stadiums here in the market, and it gets nice and cold in the wintertime. Have you been to these games before, and what would it mean for this market to be able to host one?
Well, it's going to be an amazing opportunity and something like you've never seen before. And let me tell you this. When I was in Nashville, before Nashville ever got to host an All-Star game, I got to directly question the commissioner on, hey, is Nashville getting an All-Star game? And he doubled down on it then. So if Gary Bettman says you're getting it, you're getting it. So Utah's getting an outdoor game. Even though it hasn't been announced, you could take it to the bank. So he wants it to happen. It will happen. Obviously, ownership wants it to happen. Ryan Smith wants it to happen. I cannot begin to describe how much fun it is. It's like I don't even know if circus is the right event, because circus implies it's a little loosey-goosey. It's not. It is. The hockey world pays attention. The media descends on it. Outdoor games, especially if it's your first one, there's a sparkle and a luster to it. It is something special. When you look down, you see a rink. You look up, you see the mountains. And I'm sure it'll be a beautiful, picturesque setting. Plus, you're going to get a chance to get people from all over the hockey world to come in. Instead of just 12,000, you can get 20, 30, 40, 50,000, depending on where it's held. It's magical. And Sean, I think people are going to love the atmosphere for the entire week before this game happens.
I mean, it's going to be great. You get the special sweaters for it and everything. It's going to be awesome. I won't say if and when it happens. I'll say when it happens, because I trust you. And Gary Bettman, he's like you said, if he doubles down on it, there's no reason to think that they're not going to follow through.
No, they want it to happen. And they also realize, here's the thing, and Utah fans, be proud of this. The way you are trending as a fan base is attracting attention around the league. And that is something very important to understand and appreciate about the Utah fan base. So I think it's just another sign of how fast things are growing.
Well, everyone's getting involved with Utah hockey. Dennis Dodd, who is not always tweeting about hockey, I think it was a week or two ago now, said, hey, guess what? Breaking news. Utah Hockey Club has decided on the permanent club name. And that was that. Didn't give us a timeline on the release of what it would be. Didn't give any hint as to what it would be. Timeline-wise, is the draft kind of the appropriate target we should be having as a fan base?
I think between the end of the season and the draft, at some point between now and the end of June, you want your identity, your logo, your marks, your colors all taken care of. As we've seen, Mammoth is the only trademark that they extended, so that might have spoiled the coming out party, but it doesn't eliminate the suspense around what it's going to look like. But yes, you want, by the time you hit draft and free agency, you want to be able to hand that hat, that jersey, have that logo, and honestly, I mean, maybe around the Stanley Cup final is a good time to do that. Who knows? And that's the middle of June. So we'll see whatever their timeline turns out to be, but it will be before the draft.
All right. We will have you on again before this happens, and obviously you're welcome to revise your answers in that regard. But you just mentioned the Stanley Cup. We're rounding towards playoff time, and the power structure in the NHL has taken shape. Who do you think is the Cup favorite as of today in your mind?
Okay, Western Conference Cup favorite for me is the Winnipeg Jets, hands down, no question. And my dark horse has turned into St. Louis. Eastern Conference, the Cup favorite is suddenly Washington, which kind of blows my mind to say that, but they really are. And they're not a dark horse. They're not going to surprise anybody, but the Florida Panthers are my other answer there because they've been there, done that, and I think that they have the experience to get it done.
So you think there's a possibility, at least a decent one, that Washington could win a cup the same year that Ovechkin is likely to break Gretzky's all-time goals record?
Yes, because it's not just the offense, although they're scoring a ridiculous amount of goals as a team, but they're keeping the puck out of the net at an incredible rate. And I think defense wins championships, and they have allowed the fewest goals in the Eastern Conference, and I think the third fewest in the NHL. That always gives you a chance.
We'll keep an eye on all those squads. Wow, all the way from out of the playoff picture to Tom Callahan's dark horse in the West, the St. Louis Blues. I don't love hearing it, but I don't disagree with it either, Tom.
It's a harsh reality.
Appreciate your time today and your insight. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Tom Callahan, at Callahan on air, if you're not already following him on Twitter, which you should be, Utah Hockey Club insider. That would be banana sandwich if the Blues could continue this hot streak all the way, even to like a Western Conference Finals, a Stanley Cup final. They were out of the playoff picture. They were not a team that we were even really discussing much 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Also interesting to hear him. I mean, the Panthers are defending Cup champs. They're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference this year, defending their Cup title really well. Tkachuk's out for the rest of the – well, no, he's possibly back for the playoffs. I just remembered, right?
And also
But maybe out for the rest of the year. That'd be a bit surprising to me without their best player from last year's Cup run.
Well,
if that turns out to be the case.
Whether he comes back or not, and I think he's going to, Florida used the NHL rule, and they bolstered their roster while he was out.
That's true.
And, like, they acquired more talent.
That's true. So maybe it shouldn't be that surprising if they do it. It just, I don't know. It's just you think about losing your best player to injury and possibility of them not being able to play in the postseason, and still being able to have a legitimate shot to go back to back. That would be pretty rare, I think.
Yeah, and it highlights what Tom said when I asked him that draft question about how an individual player, one player, really can change your fate in basketball. And we know this, can change your fate in basketball more than in any other sport. And not quite at that same level. Whether you add your best player or you lose your best player in hockey, you got to be playing great team hockey. And we've seen that from Utah Hockey Club as well. I mean, Clayton Keller is your overall best player. He's your captain. He's your points leader. And Keller has been pretty reliable. He's been pretty healthy all season long, but you really start playing your best when you've also got Gunther, when you've also got a healthy defensive lineup, when you're not just like piecing together some skeleton crew on the blue line. So the hockey really changes when you're talking about the full team dynamic. And if Florida can get Tkachuk back for even maybe not a first round series, but a second and beyond, gosh.
Yeah, I'd be then considering what you were just talking about, that I had not considered just how much they bolstered their lineup since his injury. Yeah, it might be surprising if they don't win the Cup, if they're able to get Tkachuk back at least for the later rounds in the playoffs. But yeah, I cannot wait for our first Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, Utah probably not going to be part of going to have a playoff run, but the first one since having a team here, it's going to be a nice buzz in the air around here, even if Utah Hockey Club can't pull off a miracle and get in at this point.
All right, Love Volleyball is back. They've got games April 4th and 5th at Bruins Arena at Salt Lake Community College. I will have a pair of tickets to give away during Topical Trivia coming up in about 15 minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, so make sure you stay tuned. Lots left to get to, and only 27 minutes of showtime left to get to it. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Utah spring football in action this week. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM has all the coverage you need, brought to you by Jersey Mike's. ESPN700sports.com for all the details, all the collected sound, etc.
And new sound from last night, by the way, up on the website. Kyle Whittingham, Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, Spencer Fano.
All right.
So some headliners on the offensive side along with the head coach.
Defensive players available tomorrow.
Yes.
Offensive players were made available with the head coach, and all that sound is up at ESPN700sports.com, on the ESPN 700 Sports app, the on-demand section of our website. Great for any time you don't catch the show live or for when James goes up to practice and grabs all that sound. Well done, sir. Love that.
Yes, thank you, boss. And you'll be there tomorrow.
Correct. Yes.
Getting that sound. Hopefully, Morgan Scalley's always good for a good sound bite, and hopefully a lot of changes on the defensive side. So maybe we'll get some good sound from some new players on the defensive side of the ball tomorrow.
I got to submit my requests for which defensive players we want to talk to. So 877-353-0700.
Yeah, who do you want to hear from?
If you have any particular defensive player you want to hear from, we can request from Junk.
I met Junk in person. Did
you call him Junk in person?
I did not. I chickened out.
All right.
But also he was busy looking at his sheet of paper, pointing other people to their one-on-ones. So I didn't want to take up too much of his time. I just kind of said, "Congrats on the new job. Happy to have you here." So
great. Well done.
So got a chance to meet our guy Junk yesterday.
Kyle Whittingham, when asked about some of the position battles yesterday, he did of course talk about what we thought with the offense. Wide receiver, you got to figure out the pecking order. At running back, he gave Wayshawn Parker kind of the inside track, but said that battles are happening there. He also mentioned the corner spot opposite Scooby Davis as being a place where there's particularly heated battles going on.
Yeah, and he did what you're a psychic, OC. He did what you said he probably would do. He mentioned some of the veteran guys or newer guys that, in the case of Wayshawn Parker, a new guy that they know is going to get a lot of playing time. He mentioned those guys by name, and then he just left it at there's battles in other positions. You predicted the future, my friend.
Yes. Well, I am a clairvoyant when it comes to these things. In all seriousness, though, I mean, coaches have to be careful about the level of information. I was somewhat surprised to know that spirited reps were being conducted in front of the collected media.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was the old 2-minute drill kind of thing. And Daniel Bray's a guy who, speaking of the position battle, with the position, other battles in the running back room, he's a guy that kind of popped to me, at least from his speed standpoint after catching the ball. We actually got to see some good competition. One of the coaches who may or may not be new might have said something about, if you want it easy, go back to where you were before. Might have heard that.
Love that.
Yelled out at them. Like, it was fun to see, because we also have, that's the other dynamic of this. Obviously, Jason Beck is new, but there's other new position coaches, and it was fun to kind of hear some of those new voices and some of that sassiness that I just mentioned from some of the new voices. Like, it was a fun, like, competitive atmosphere from the 20 minutes we got to see.
That's great. So Utah football is it's interesting because, there are more questions than normal, and with that comes a certain level of trepidation, certainly, but also a level of, like, excitement. Like, we don't know who these people are going to be. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. There was a familiarity that occasionally bred contempt with the old way of things. And now you've got a little bit of a shakeup happening, and so fans, players, everyone, media, we all have to kind of adjust to that, which is, I don't know, it's fun. It's new. It's fresh.
Yeah. And this is like, media day is the ultimate, everyone's happy, ultimate optimistic time. But spring football kind of is that way too, especially under new circumstances. it's that time when everyone's got a smile on their face. Everyone's just happy to have the pads back on and to be doing some kind of football style workouts, some kind of what we saw what they let us see yesterday, some actual,
Pads on, full pads on.
Pads on, game rep type stuff, scrimmage, almost a scrimmage level type thing. So, of course, you're going to have lots of smiles and lots of optimism. It's just that kind of that time of year for it, but also when it's new and fresh, I think it breeds a lot of that too.
To be young and excited about football again. And then, of course, over the next several weeks, that excitement for 25 players or so on the roster is going to erode very drastically into the realization like, oh, bleep, I'm not going to play this year. I better find a transfer portal destination.
Yeah, the window opens early May, right?
Yeah.
So,
and
that's
probably
going to come quick.
Probably, by the way, opens after spring ball for the last time, it seems like. Remember the Association of College Football Coaches?
Yeah.
They voted unanimously to have one single transfer portal window.
In January and
early January.
Yeah.
And that's probably the direction we are headed sooner than later. Because these rule changes happen. So this might be the last time you can transfer after spring football.
I hope that we have a meaningful adjustment to the college basketball one as well. And to at least be 1 year or one a year and it be after the NCAA tournament. I hope that that's coming soon, but we shall see.
Yeah, the coaches were getting a little bit saucy about the idea that the transfer portal opened a couple of days ago when you're headed to the round of 16.
Yeah. And we saw last year, I mentioned it on yesterday's show, we saw, I believe there was at least one Texas player, the name's escaping me right now, as they were going to the Elite Eight, or Sweet 16 Elite Eight, second weekend of March Madness, and one of their players entered the portal because it was open. And I don't know. That's problematic. Like, we need to have it at least be after the NCAA tournament.
Tell you what, it is less problematic. The timing of the basketball transfer portal window is less problematic than the December window in football.
That's true, because at least it's not before the big postseason tournament.
Yeah, and honestly, like, there's only now 16 teams that were affected that are still playing. Most teams, their season's over. You've got your NIT teams, you've got the college basketball crown teams that are obviously going to be active here. But even if you could just wait, right? I mean, Sweet 16 games begin tomorrow. That's going to whittle it down even further. And you still have 3 weeks left to enter your name in the window. So, like, you don't even have to put your name in.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to have, we talked about earlier, a call back to what we talked about earlier when we said coaches, we have less of the attitude from coaches and certainly fans and other players of, you're in the portal, you're dead to me, kind of thing. I hope that permeates into, if the window is going to stay as the opening day of the transfer window being in the middle of the NCAA tournament, I hope coaches are going to be able to treat it like a pro player in their contract year and say, okay, well, you're still with us now.
Yeah.
And we're still playing, so it's up to you. If you want to play for us, we'd still utilize you.
Right.
Guys get injured, we still think highly of you, whatever the case may be. Like the Penn State backup quarterback left before they started their playoff run. Penn State gets to the quarterfinals, right? Or was it the semifinals of the college football playoff, and they couldn't have used him still? Like, I know. Okay, he's deciding to leave the program, but we see that in pros all the time.
That's
guys in their contract year, why not? They don't say, hey, well, why don't you just leave now then?
Yeah, I think that you're going to get more and more of that, where
I hope so.
Like, you have to remove the emotion from it as a coach, which, by the way, you should be very good at, because as a coach, you know that if the grass is greener somewhere else, you're going to take that job. So you should not treat kids like they're any different if they want to do that, right? So, anyway, transfer portal is very fascinating in the college basketball world, certainly in the college football world as well. All right, I keep telling you to do this. I don't know if you're listening to me yet, but I'm going to remind you over and over and over again. You should already have this number saved in your phone under Top Local Roofing, 801-839-4501. Everything looks great right now. Everything's awesome right now. You're sitting out on your deck. You're trying to figure out when you have to start doing yard work for real. Your house is in great shape. Probably. But just do yourself a favor and look up at the roof and see if the heat tape is still in good shape after a crazy winter. See if those shingles got blown off in the windstorms we've had recently. See if your roof is actually protecting everything under the roof. And if you don't want to get up on a ladder and do it yourself, better yet, call 801-839-4501. Let Justin Cunningham send a crew out from Top Local Roofing, and they'll go over with a fine-tooth comb. They will make sure that your roof is set to block out the moisture, is energy efficient at the max, that there's no shingles that need to be replaced, that the membrane roof that goes over your deck is still connected at the right seam to the asphalt shingles, that the metal roof hasn't been bent or bothered, that the soffit, the fascia, the gutters, all that stuff are in really good shape. Top Local Roofing, 801-839-4501. A beautiful day like today, and you can forget really, really quickly how important it is to have a reliable roof. When the rains start coming, that's when you're going to remember, oh, dang, I should have gotten this looked at while it was a 75-degree March day. Give them a call today, 801-839-4501 for Top Local Roofing. We'll give away some tickets. We'll do a little crosstalk next as we wrap up the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700. Crosstalk coming, brought to you by Burt Brothers. Spring into savings. Get the car ready for the season. $69 tires, $50 off service tickets, $79 alignments with the purchase of 2 or more tires. Burt Brothers does it better. These deals aren't going to last forever. 877-353-0700 if you want to win a couple of tickets. Love volleyball tickets. Salt Lake versus Madison, April 5th at Bruin Arena on the campus of Salt Lake Community College. The St. Louis Blues are red hot and really killing the hopes of Utah Hockey Club and everybody else right now for that second wild card spot in the NHL playoff race. 12 games left to play for Utah Hockey Club, but St. Louis has won how many in a row? We talked about this a couple of times earlier on the show today. How many games in a row have the St. Louis Blues won that are staving off the hopes of Utah Hockey Club as we speak right now? Show tomorrow is coming at you live from Les Schwab Tire Center in Roy. That'll be 5832 South, 1900 West. It's opening day of Major League Baseball, Sweet 16 basketball happening. We'll have hot dogs, hamburgers, and tater tots from Warren's. Great giveaways like free oil changes as well. Join us tomorrow, 11 to 2, Les Schwab Tire Center in Roy. Coming up now on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM is The Drive with Spence Checketts. Hi, Spence.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
Great.
Good.
We had Josh Eilert in studio today for about 35, 40 minutes.
Very nice.
It was a good conversation.
He has a really interesting career path. We are going to sit down with him on Friday. First question, what's Bob Huggins like? You know, and Bob Huggins strikes me a little bit in the same kind of cut from the same cloth as Rick Majerus, where you got to separate the personality from the basketball mind a little bit. Tough gig for Josh. You know, he moved his family out here. I'm sure you'd talk to him about that. 3 kids. And I wonder what's next for him. You know?
Well, I asked him that, you know, what he thinks is next. And he loves the idea of a head coaching opportunity. He loved the idea of maybe being on the staff if it made sense, only if it organically made sense. I think his exact words were, if it's forced, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And no one's in a position to force it one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, Alex Jensen, we saw the contract details that Josh Furlong dug up, that, you know, he's taking his time with all this kind of stuff. And it's going to be an interesting path moving forward for a guy who spent 17 years at West Virginia, and then he's been here for like 10 months.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah, and it's interesting whether it's coaching or, I mean, your world, MMA, music, whatever it is. You hear about somebody and you're like, oh, okay, overnight success story. No, like 17 years as not just an assistant. He was the director of basketball ops. I mean, he did a little bit of everything, first at K-State, then West Virginia. I was interested to learn that he didn't know Craig. He didn't really know Craig Smith that well. Coaching world is such a small fraternity that you think they all know each other. And there's some in-state connections. Jared Calhoun, Utah State coach who just got an extension, comes from the Huggins tree as well. But he said he had like 4 or 5 conversations with Craig over Zoom, and then Craig just hired him. And if you're Alex Smith, excuse me, I've done that like 20 times. If you're Alex Jensen, if you're Alex Smith, you're good. You're chilling. If you're Alex Jensen, you could do a lot worse than have a coach on your staff that has basically 2 decades of Big 12 experience, because Josh played at K-State as well.
So I was going over in the opening segment of the show today, I was going over some of the performance incentives in Alex Jensen's contract and just trying to have a little bit of fun with which one are you going to hit first, which one's most likely to hit. When you get to the $100,000 category, there's a couple of things. Final Four appearance, Big 12 regular season championship. Which of those is more likely?
Great question. Because these days, if you win a Big 12 championship, you're beating the likes of, well, right now it's Houston. Kansas has a loaded recruiting class. They'll be back at, like, if you're winning the Big 12 championship, you're playing better than 2, 3, 4 big time blue blood programs. Not to mention Brigham Young. And you know, BYU has I don't know. Like, I think the Demon kid is leaving. I think Yegor has played well enough in the tournament. I feel like he's a top 10 pick. Richie could come back. He's 23. And if he has a chance to be an NBA player now, but if they return Richie Saunders, if they return everybody besides Yegor Demon, and they bring in the Debanza kid. There's a rumor they're in on another top 10 kid. BYU might start the season top 10 next year.
Yeah.
You know? So if you're Utah and if you win the Big 12, you're playing better than 3 or 4 national championship contenders. Final Four, though, I would say Big 12 championship is probably more likely than a Final Four. It's a really good question because it's just, I mean.
Well, look, both are prohibitively difficult.
For sure. And Rick had a ton of great teams and only one Final Four team.
Yeah. One of those things requires you to be excellent over the course of 20 whatever games.
Mm-hmm.
The other, you have to be even better over the course of 6 games.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, $100,000 bonus associated with either of those. Top 4 finish in the Big 12, Big 12 Coach of the Year, an NCAA tournament appearance, and a win outside of the first 4, all good for a $25,000 bonus.
Yeah, I honestly feel like the Final Four bonus should be higher than $100K. But, you know.
And in practicality, it probably translates to a $2 million raise on an extension.
For sure.
So the bonus is cool. You probably take that $100,000 and you chop it up between your coaching staff and like your student manager or whatever. You say, hey, thanks for doing this. I just went from $3.6 million to $5.5 million because we went to the Final Four.
But a 6-year commitment, I think, from the U is a really, really positive sign that they're going to ride with Alex for a while. And you know, the old adage was, I remember talking about this when Kalani was hired at BYU. Like, well, I hope they give him 4 years because 4 years back in the olden days was okay. That's your recruiting cycle.
Yep.
Now it's year over year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now you should always be given at least 2 years.
Sure.
But you don't get to do the thing we used to do. Well, you got to give him at least 4 years so he's got his guys there.
Right.
The transfer portal means that you should have your guys by year number 2.
Yeah, and you know, we'll see who plays for Utah in the college basketball crown. I think Mason Madsen had a shoulder surgery.
We were told, Josh Eilert said that he's not going to be available because he cleaned up the shoulder. Caleb Lohner is doing the NFL prep thing.
As he should.
And they're gonna have to play it by ear with Ezra Assar.
Do you think your football guy, Caleb's Big 12 Pro Day? Yeah. We knew he had I can remember watching him as a high school player, watching him dunk on people. I remember thinking then, like, man, this kid's got a 40-inch vert. He's put on like 50 pounds, and he still has a 37-inch vert.
Yeah, and he ran sub 4.7.
Someone's probably going to give him a look. Yeah.
You know what else, Spence? Is he benched like in the middle of the pack for the tight ends,
which is very impressive
for a long-armed basketball guy. He's clearly very strong. His top acceleration, he hit like 21 miles an hour or something. Like, he is a freak.
Does he get drafted?
I don't know if he gets drafted, but absolutely he's going to have an opportunity in the NFL.
And maybe
and is worth probably a 6th or 7th round pick, probably 7th round pick.
And I can remember, he'll get a kick out of this. I remember when Trevor Riley, our guy, the Rattler, I wonder how Trevor's doing these days. I wonder where Trevor is right now and what he's doing.
Yeah.
I often think that, to be honest with you. But when Trev was drafted, I texted him. I said, hey, congrats. He's like, I'm not happy. I didn't want to get drafted.
Yeah, it's better if you're in like the back end, your 7th round or whatever. It's better to be an undrafted free agent to kind of choose where you go and what's going to be the best fit for you. But somebody like Caleb Lohner, a team like the Kansas City Chiefs is a great example of this, where they get to play around. They get to dabble a little bit in these types of players where you don't need to use a roster spot on someone who absolutely has to help you win right now.
Yeah.
So they take a flyer on the rugby kid. They take a flyer on the converted basketball player who's now a tight end. And it's a great situation to end up with those teams anyway, because they're going to tell you the truth. Like, hey, look, we're going to stash you on the practice squad for a year, and you're going to make $580,000.
Is that what they make?
Practice squad money is good right now.
Man. Yeah, you could do a lot worse than that.
I mean, you're going to do worse than that in every single job available to you out of college.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe forever.
Probably forever.
Quite frankly.
So, yeah, like Caleb Lohner is super, super intriguing because, when we did talk to him, when he was first, being recruited as a big-time player out of the state of Utah, the basketball vision was there.
Yeah.
And, I remember asking him, how many times has a football coach been like, hey, we want you to play football? He's like, well, yeah, but I'm an elite basketball player.
Yeah.
Why do I need to worry about the football thing?
Yeah.
Well, now you do.
Yeah, no, good for him.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, go make some money. Yeah, play until somebody tells you can't, as a coach of mine once said. And for me, that was when I was 19.
Somebody should have told me that when I was 19. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks to everyone who tuned into the show today, everyone who joined us. That's it for the Sean O'Connell Show. We will be in Roy at Les Schwab Tires with giveaways and food tomorrow. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.